Collective, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I am the Nosy Witch and this is my channel, Nosy Witch Tarot. I do collective pick a card readings here on YouTube. My readings do tend to be fairly long, they tend to be deep dives, so grab a hot or cold beverage of choice, get settled, get cozy because we have a lot to get through today. So as you guys know, although I make tarot videos, I also watch a lot of other tarot readers here on YouTube, and I've always personally really enjoyed the messages from your future self or higher self, those kinds of readings. I find, that they can be really inspiring and very reassuring, particularly when we are going through hard times and we just need someone to tell us, things are going to get better. But I've also been loving this I met my younger self for coffee trend that's been prevalent on social media lately, and I wouldn't say the concept of this is new necessarily. I think a lot of us in the spiritual community are very, very familiar with things like writing letters to our future self or letters to our inner child and things like that. But I do like that this idea has really been in the forefront lately and it's been popularised. And if any of you guys are on social media, you'll know that some social media trends are just funny or silly, and some of them we just can't wait for them to pass. But I actually love this one, and I love that it's not just people in the spiritual community, but it's like lots of different people have adopted this and they're running with this. And I think it's actually created some really meaningful dialogue. And yeah, some people have kind of been joking around with it, and some people have been utilising the trend to promote their businesses and things like that, which is fine. But a lot of what's been said I have found actually really moving. And I thought, why not do a reading that kind of combines these concepts? So the past self, the current self, and the future self. So this reading is titled, well, I don't know what it's going to be titled yet, but it's going to be something like, you, your younger self, and your future self meet for coffee. What happens? What do you need to tell each other? Because honestly, how often do we, as in our current selves, really get to sit down and consider how far we've come? I feel like a lot of us don't really reflect on that. I feel like often we don't always realise how different we are to our younger selves or how much we've grown until we're able to sit down and have a conversation with that person, and then it hits us how far we've come and how much progress we have actually made, but also how we are still deeply connected to that person at a soul level. And as much as the current version of us can teach that younger person, it is a two-way street. We can also learn from our younger selves. And then our future self is there to remind us that although we've come a long, long way, this is not the end of the journey. Our future self is also there to listen and learn from us and to guide us on our future trajectory. They're there to tell us what we need to know from a place of truly loving us, because they are us. They're just us on a different phase of the timeline. So this is basically, if you, your younger self, and your future self got the chance to sit down and catch up, what would you discuss? What would you want to know? And what would you want to tell each other if you got that opportunity? And it doesn't have to be that you go for coffee. If you don't like coffee, you can meet these versions of yourself for whatever kind of beverage you like. You guys could even go skydiving or go to the strip club together if you like. It doesn't matter necessarily. All that matters is that you get this opportunity to have a conversation. So in terms of the reading breakdown, this is how the reading is going to play out. As usual, we are going to be starting off with your oracle reading, which you are welcome to use as an energy check and for confirmation you've chosen the right pile. So this portion of the reading is intended to represent your current energy, which should help you confirm that you've chosen the right pile. So we're starting off with a conversation between your younger self and your current self. Your future self hasn't arrived to this portion of the reading yet, okay? They are going to make their grand entrance later to catch everyone up, don't you worry. But for now, in this oracle portion, this is the current you talking to your younger self. So maybe, present you is answering some questions that your younger self needs to ask. Present you could be offering their reassurance and wisdom and guidance to their younger counterpart. Present you might be telling their younger counterpart stories from the past and letting them know, how far they've come or how much things have changed, which things are different and which things are maybe not so different. They could be informing younger you what they are currently up to and what they hope to achieve. And in turn, younger you could also be reminding current you of some of the things that are important to them. They might give present you some important insight and advice that only this version of them that knows them best can give. They might also tell you what surprises them or what makes them proud about this current version of you. So in this portion, we might talk about the specific phase of life that younger you is at in comparison to the specific phase of life current you is at. And then we are going to move on to the tarot, and that's when future you is stepping into the spotlight to catch up with both of you and tell you what's what. So you and younger you are going to be like, oh my gosh, future me, we have been waiting for you forever, or what's going on, fill us in. And your future self is going to spill the tea. They're going to let you guys know what you're getting up to in the future, what things are like for you generally, who will you become, and who are you currently becoming. So to tap into this energy of future you, we are going to be looking at some tarot cards and doing a deep dive. So we're going to be looking at what conversations you guys might be having, what would you talk about, what would you tell each other. You are all going to be sharing your wisdom and your lessons with one another, and you are going to use that to continue becoming this person who you are meant to be in the future. Sorry, I feel like that's so confusing. I hope this is making sense. But yeah, hopefully these messages are going to be uplifting and empowering, and they are going to give you some clarity and help you to understand yourself on a deeper level. Please note that these are collective readings and not every single detail is going to resonate, nor would I expect it to. Always take what's for you and leave the rest for somebody else. You do not have to accept anything as your story if it just isn't. Also know, absolutely nothing bad will happen if you choose the wrong pile. All it means is that you get to go back and choose another. And you are also very welcome to choose more than one if more than one is calling to you today. We could be looking at multiple timelines here, and there might be messages for you in more than one pile. On a personal note, please let me know if anything resonates for you or if any of this helps you out in even any minor way, because hearing from you guys means more to me than you could ever know. I really do appreciate any small way that you can support me. Even just taking time out of your day to listen to these readings, it just means the absolute world to me. And if you would like to support me in other ways, likes are always welcome, comments are always welcome, even if it's just to let me know which pile you picked. Consider subbing to help me grow if you haven't done so already. Sharing is also amazing too. Now, I'm such a boomer when it comes to technology, and I haven't sorted out the super thanks thing yet, but I have been asked about it once or twice, so I will try and sort that out. But please know there is never, ever, ever any pressure with things like that. You do not owe me anything. I want to put this content out here because it's something I'm genuinely passionate about, and I want to help people the way other readers have helped me. And I know it's cheesy, but it is true. Like, it's never been about the money for me. If you are taking the time out of your busy day to listen to these readings, you have already made my day and you don't owe me anything else. Everything else is just a bonus and a much appreciated bonus, but it is not essential. You are always welcome to pay me via likes and comments. They are more than enough. Thank you though, for those of you who have asked. And for a couple of people, I just thought I'd mention this now, a couple of people have asked about personal readings, and I just want to say that is absolutely something I would love to do in the future. But if I were to do something like that, I would want to make sure that the prices are accessible and that I have enough time and energy and resources to dedicate to that. So at the moment, that is a faraway dream of mine. But to be really real, I would love to have a tarot business and do this every single day of the week. But although I am monetized here, which is huge, like, I am very proud of reaching that goal, and I'm very grateful to anyone who's been supporting me along the way. But I've not yet earned any money from this, honestly, because I've not reached the minimum payment threshold, which is fine. Like, I truly do not care, because for me it was more about proving to myself that I could just hit the milestone, and I'm not relying on this for income in any way. Like, I have a day job. This is literally just a passion of mine. But all of that is to say, yes, if I had the opportunity to do so, I would love to make this a bigger part of my everyday life. I would love to do it for work. We are just not there yet, but maybe we will be one day. Like, who knows what is going to happen ever. Anyway, with all of that said, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening and supporting and for sending me your beautiful energy. And with all of that said, let's introduce the pals today. I'm going to pick these octopi up so you can see them. So over here we have pile 1 and the Mean Girls Tarot with the speckled octopus. That is pile 1, the Mean Girls Tarot and the speckled octopus. Over here we have pile 2 and the Good Karma Tarot with the blue octopus. That is pile 2 with the Good Karma Tarot and the blue octopus. Over here we have pile 3 and the Starbright Tarot with the pink octopus. That is pile 3 with the Starbright Tarot and the pink octopus. Here we have pile 4 and the Three Trees Tarot with the purple octopus. That is pile 4 with the Three Trees Tarot and the purple octopus. Octopus doesn't even feel like a real word anymore at this point. Anyway, we have pile 5 and the Queer Tarot with the rainbow octopus. That is pile 5 and the Queer Tarot with the rainbow octopus. Please feel free to pause the video if you would like to tap into your intuition and reflect on which pile you would like to choose. And once you've chosen your pile, please head to the pinned comment or the description box below, and timestamps will be listed there that will take you to the start of your chosen reading. Thank you so much for being here, collective, and I'll see you at the start of your chosen pile. Hi, pile 1. If you chose pile 1 and the Mean Girls Tarot with this little guy, the speckled octopus, you are in the correct place. Welcome to your reading, friends. If you would like a full breakdown regarding what this reading will entail, please check out my introduction. I go through absolutely everything there. I will also leave some details in the pinned comment below for your reference. If you want to take a quick glance at that, go right ahead so you know what to expect. However, we are going to be starting off by looking at your oracle cards as a little bit of an energy check. So this will be a conversation between your current self and younger self for the most part. Then we are going to move on to the tarot, where your future self will be joining us and adding their input. So this reading is basically if you, your younger self, and your future self got the chance to sit down and catch up, what would you discuss? Or what would you want to know? And what would you want to tell each other if you've got that opportunity? So this reading will hopefully give you that chance to reflect. But we're also going to be touching on future possibilities, so hopefully you are going to come away feeling uplifted. So usual disclaimer, this is a collective reading and not everything will resonate. Please take what's for you and leave the rest for somebody else. With all of that said, and without any further hesitation, let's get started with your reading today. So we are going to be unveiling these oracle cards and looking at the overarching energy between your younger self and your current self. So starting on the left over here, we have your soul whispers love, your ego shouts fear. We have got busy beaver, motivation, cooperation, efficiency, builder of sturdy and stable structures, teach me your tenacious ways. We have got sleep. We have got it's not the end, only the beginning. We have got number 1, clarity, carrot. And we have got number 11, sun, paint the sun back into your sky. So I always like to start these readings by mentioning the numbers on the cards. These could be relevant in terms of a date, a month, a year, or an amount of days, months, or years. This could be an age or an age gap, or something significant astrologically, like a particular house or a life path, or this could be an angel number or synchronicity you are seeing a lot of. And that doesn't have to apply for this to be your pile, it's just an extra confirmation for specific individuals, so take it if it resonates, but it's fine if not. So the numbers 1 or 11 could be significant. We have repeating number 1s here, so you could be seeing a lot of the number 111, which is a powerful angel number, and we will go into the meaning of that and why it might be showing up in this reading, because I feel like that could give you some clarity. Somebody here could be born on the 1st or 11th of a month. First house or 11th house energy could be significant, so maybe Aries/Mars or Aquarius/Uranus or Saturn energy being relevant here. It could also be that the number 3 is relevant as a day or as a repeating number, or the 3rd house, which is a Gemini house, so maybe Gemini/Mercury too. Somebody could have a birthday in January, March, or November, so the corresponding zodiac signs of these months might also be relevant. I think that is Capricorn, Aquarius, Aries, Pisces, or Scorpio/Sagittarius. A couple of those have already been mentioned, so that might just be extra confirmation. So a lot of you, I'm sure, are aware of angel numbers and their various meanings, and a lot of them have multiple meanings, but to give a very, very brief overview of that repeating number 1, and feel free to Google this if you want like a more in-depth look at this as an angel number, but in terms of how it might pertain to your reading, 111 can represent new beginnings, positive energy. It can also represent alignment and manifestation, as well as guidance from your angels. So there's a couple of messages I'm getting from that, but the overarching energy is like your current self is connecting with your younger self at just the right time and is kind of acting as this guiding light for that younger self. But at the same time, your current self is still only at the beginning of their journey. So I feel as though your younger self is kind of enamored with your current self and the progress you've made, and the younger self is almost feeling like current you could be their guardian angel. They are like, yes, this is my gift from the heavens. I get to connect with this enlightened being. They're the version of me I want to become, and they can tell me what to do and who to be. And your current self is saying like, yes, we have made a lot of progress, but it is still early days. This is only the beginning, and this is only the start of what we are capable of. For your pile specifically, and obviously I've not done the other piles yet, so I don't know what else is going to come through, but I am feeling like the age gap between your younger self and your current self isn't that large. And you don't have to take what I'm about to say incredibly literally, because this is more about the overall vibe rather than a specific biological age itself. But the vibe I'm getting is almost like a younger sibling who really looks up to their cool older sister or brother, and the younger sibling sees their older sibling as so mature and so all-knowing, but really the older sibling in the grand scheme of things is still a kid essentially. Like, they might know more, but they don't know everything. The example that's popping into my head right now, and I feel like this is an example that solidifies how much our concept of age changes as we get older. But I remember when I was in primary school, that's elementary school to my US audience, I used to think that older kids in primary school were just so grown up and so sophisticated compared to little old me. So, just for context, and I think many schools in England where I am at least operate in a similar way to this, but in most primary schools, just so you have a point of reference, you start off in reception class, and that's at like ages 4 or 5. Then it goes year 1, year 2, year 3, all the way up to year 6. And so in year 6, you are about 10 or 11, and then you leave primary school and you go on to high school and start in year 7. So that is when you're around 11 or 12-ish. Then back when I was at school, at least, you left after year 11, so that's when you're around 16-ish, and then you either go into further education, or you went to like do an apprenticeship, or you went out to work. I think in a lot of schools in the UK now, students do tend to stay in some form of education until they are at least 18. I'm not quite sure how it works these days, but that's irrelevant. I'm just talking about my experience, which was a long, long time ago. I'm just using these ages as like a point of reference. But basically, the reason I'm using this as an example is because I remember when we would have like whole school assemblies in primary/elementary school, the year 6s to me would look like adults. When I was in, say, year 3 and I'd look at a year 6 girl, I would see her as so much older and more sophisticated. And I remember one of the privileges of being in year 6 is in assemblies, the year 6s got to sit on the benches at the back of the hall, whereas everyone else had to sit on the floor. So the only people not on the floor in those assemblies were the teachers, like staff members and year 6. So as a kid, you're almost seeing these year 6s as true, proper grown-ups. And especially like age 11, I guess, is when some kids are starting to develop. They're just starting to go through puberty maybe, or they're going through like growth spurts, they're getting taller. So me as a little girl, I look at a year 6 girl and think like, wow, she's so tall, she's so pretty, she's so sophisticated and cool, because that's how she appeared next to little old me, who was skinny, flat as a board up top. Obviously I would be because I was a child. And I was envious, like, wow, I can't wait to be that cool and grown and glamorous. And then you realise when you get older, like those year 6s who you thought were the epitome of sophistication, they were just clueless little kids all along. And the reason I mentioned high school is because in primary school, year 6s are like in the big leagues. They're the biggest, they're the oldest, so they kind of rule the school. I'm thinking of King Bob from Recess right now. I don't know whether that's relevant to anyone or whether any of you guys watch that. Could be a confirmation if you did. But once those year 6s got to high school and they became year 7s, they are further along than they were in year 6, obviously, but to those year 11s at high school who are like 16 and twice their height with way more experience, year 7s are basically babies. Year 7s are basically toddlers. They seem tiny, they seem like children. And it's the same thing even in terms of like how we perceive ourselves sometimes. Like when we are 16, we might think we are so grown up and nobody can tell us nothing. But then when we're in our 20s, we look at a 16-year-old and we are like, you are literally just a child, like you didn't know anything. So I think this is kind of an example to illustrate how younger you feels about current you. Younger you is very excited about current you, and they're saying to current you like, oh my god, you're so cool, you're so experienced, tell me everything, what is it like? And current you is like, well, we've come a long way, but we've only really just got started. We have a long way to go here. So younger you sees this current you as this oracle of knowledge, and younger you is like, guide me, teach me your ways, show me everything. But I think current you is very aware that there's more to learn, and current you is like, if you think this is something, just wait until you see what the future has in store. Another example I'm getting is like one friend could be 17 and the other friend has just turned 18. So the friend who's turned 18 goes on their first legal night out at the clubs, because the legal drinking age here is 18 where I am. So that's the age you can drink and get into clubs. So the younger friend is enthusiastically asking like, what does it feel like to be a real adult? What did you do? What are the clubs like? And the older friend is telling them all about what happened on this night out. But really, they don't have the full picture because it was their first night. There's still many more clubs to explore and many other things to do. Or, even someone doing their freshers week at college/university, and their younger sibling is asking them, what's college like? And this person is like, I don't really know. I've only done freshers week, but I'll fill you in on what I know so far. Like, to the younger person, it seems like this older person is super educated and they know everything and they're in this completely new phase of life. They're so much more advanced. or so much has changed about them, but the older person is aware, like, yes, they've progressed to this new level, but they still have so much to learn going forward. Like, this is just the start. It's also making me think of, like, you know, one twin who is born a few minutes after the other twin, and they kind of like take charge and act like they're the boss and they know what they're doing, even though they might have only experienced life for just literally a couple more minutes longer than their sibling. Obviously, you know, don't take these examples literally, this is just about the vibe, but this adds to this overall message of, like, the gap here isn't actually that huge, because it's such like older sister / older brother kind of vibes. So this could be you even just 1 or 2 years ago versus you now, or you as an older teenager versus you in your early 20s, or your early 20s versus your late 20s, or you in your late 20s versus your early 30s. You get it. Like, I don't need to go on, but that's the message that I'm getting. The age you are at now doesn't necessarily matter, but this seems very much like peers in a way. But the younger you really looks up to the current you, and they're excited to like get to know them and find out what they know. But I do feel like in the short amount of time you have made a lot of progress, and that's why it seems to your younger self like you are so much more advanced than they are. And so this is quite exciting, because the current self is saying like, oh, you're impressed by that? Well, don't worry, there's more to come. In any case, I feel like your younger self and current self meet at this crucial intersection where your younger self has been maybe battling some anxious thoughts or some self-limiting beliefs that have resulted in them holding themselves back or being stuck in this permanent state of procrastination. Because one thing I see your younger self really admiring about current you is that you are truly starting to go after what it is you really want. So your younger self is impressed, and they're saying like, so we really went and did the thing, huh? And it's almost like, you know, even going back to that example of transitioning from primary school to high school, the current you is like, oh yeah, I actually forgot that that was important to me, because this whole other world has recently opened up to me, and I'm so busy exploring that I forgot what I'd already achieved. But younger you is in awe that you went after something or you started something, because when you meet them, it's at this point where they are really struggling with that, and they're saying like, you know, it just seems like you've got it all together now. Younger you could be really impressed with a routine you've cultivated, or they could be amazed over how much you are capable of getting done in a day. That is something I'm getting. And it feels like current you has maybe forgotten to sort of stop and smell the roses when it comes to accomplishing this thing that younger you is super proud of. And that might be because you are looking at this path in front of you and feeling like, I still have a long way to go. But I think younger you is advising you to rest and take stock of what you've already achieved here, because younger you is like, are you kidding me? There is a time when we would have never done XYZ, and you are just telling me you've done it, and you seem so like blasé. Younger you has this really enthusiastic and excited spirit, and it feels like maybe current you is in this energy of, I don't want to say being a moody teenager, but kind of being like, yeah, I did that, whatever, it's not a big deal, everyone's doing it. And younger you is like, what? This is huge. Like, let's just backtrack, let's just rewind, and you can tell me about it. I want the details. And again, I keep getting that siblings example. It's almost like you having your first kiss, and your younger sister is like, oh my God, you kissed someone? What is it like? Tell me everything. What do I need to do if I want to kiss someone? How did you even get to the place of doing that? And you're brushing it off like, yeah, all my friends are doing it. It's not a big deal. But your younger self is seeing you in this whole new light as someone who's really grown up and who is this expert on kissing because you did it once. And the thing is, like, you're happy to guide them and give them tips, but you also know there are tons of people more experienced than you and that you're still learning. But to your younger self, this place you're at is like this monumental life-changing thing, and they're saying like, why aren't you more excited about this? This could just be in terms of you having more structure in your life generally. Like, current you could be very singular minded when it comes to a certain goal, and maybe you are not looking at progress you've already made. Like, current you could show up to younger you and say, I've just been for an hour's workout, and younger you says, we work out, and you're like, yeah, we go to the gym every day, we've been doing that for the past year. And younger you is kind of flabbergasted by that, because they're like, there was a time I could never stay in a routine, or I was too anxious to step foot in the gym, or I felt like I couldn't just go and do the thing, whatever the thing is. But current you is like, yeah, it's no big deal, because you're so focused on reaching a certain fitness level, or you're like, you know, I'm still not where I want to be. But this progress you've made over this past year, or however long this period of time is absolutely huge. And I think your younger self will want you to recognize that, because they are saying there was a time when you would have never dreamed of doing what you're doing now. And they see you making these moves towards your success, and it really does seem like you have grown a lot, or you're this brand new person who just really has their priorities in order. I feel like younger you is asking for advice on like, how do I stop getting in the way of my own success? Or where do I find the motivation that you have? How do I just go for things and, you know, stop letting my ego get in the way? And your current self is saying to you, like, one day you are just going to start and you're going to find that you are never going to want to stop. I think they're saying, like, as you lean more into doing the things you love, the anxious voices in your head are going to get quieter and it leaves you with more space to actually listen to your soul. I think your current self is telling your younger self that you are more clear-headed now due to this work you've done. It's as though you have a better understanding of who you are and your place in the world through what you've been doing, and you can see something with a lot more clarity now. I feel like your current self is saying, when I started doing things that allowed me to shine brightly and show who I truly am, things just naturally started falling into place. Life got brighter, life got warmer. I started to understand more about where I'm meant to be. But sometimes you have to just make a start, and one day you're going to turn around and be surprised about how far you've come. Because your current self, they haven't even realised that. It took younger them pointing it out, like, hey, you've come so far, you've grown so much. And I feel like with this sleep card, I'm getting a few things, some of which are kind of funny. But one thing your current self is saying to your younger self, they're saying you haven't fully woken up yet to your true potential, but once you do, there's no turning back. You're only going to continue finding out what you're capable of. But they are also saying it does take courage. It does take you allowing yourself to be in the spotlight or allowing yourself to be seen. Your current self is saying, I'm going to take you on a journey, but this isn't even the end result. Just start painting and see where it gets you. I think they're saying, like, stop putting off your joy for a later date, because you're going to get where I am and you're going to be like, wow, that was only one small part of what else I can do. You're going to be thinking of bigger and better things long after you start doing the first thing. I do think there is this emphasis on seeing things clearly. So this could be, discovering what works for you in terms of environment or relationships and figuring out what is helping you versus what is holding you back. So your younger self could be asking, like, am I still confused about this situation? And your current self is telling you, like, no, we can see it for what it is now. We get it now. So this could be in relation to a situation that was holding you back or getting you down in the past. Your younger self might be eager to know how that plays out, is something I'm getting. But current you is saying, like, trust me, one day something is going to hit you and you will know the right thing to do. And that's all I can tell you. But it feels like younger you can see that current you is trying to stop hiding their potential in whatever way that applies. It feels like current you is working on taking more deliberate action. They are planning their days more discerningly and giving to more of what they want to give to at a soul level. Sleep is being highlighted here as being significant, so I think this could work either way round. It could be that younger you is reminding current you to rest when you need to. Maybe they're saying, like, hey, we seem so busy, that's great, we found something we want to do, but when are we getting time to sleep? Or it could be like, if younger you felt like you wasted days in bed or the day was always passing you by and you weren't getting anything done, they could be saying, like, look how much we do in a day now. I used to spend all this time asleep and now look at all this stuff that I'm doing. Or it could even be like, if you ever had some kind of medical problems or an issue, like you were going through a situation that stopped you sleeping well, this could be your younger self asking, am I ever going to sleep easily again? And your current self is like, don't worry, you are not going to be losing sleep over this forever. Or maybe you are saying to your younger self, like, you have so much energy and we need to sleep more now than we used to, or we need to make sure we preserve that. But I also think it's like we haven't lost our spark. We just know how to rest more now and take advantage of our energy instead of our energy being all over the place, if that makes sense. So maybe it's that you've recently learned what to put your energy into versus what not to put it into. So it can go in either direction, but that is the overarching message I'm getting so far. So that is what I'm getting for your Oracle reading, pile 1. We are now going to be moving on to your Tarot reading, where future you is stepping into the spotlight. So you and younger you are like, oh my gosh, future me, we have been waiting for you forever, what's going on, fill us in. And your future self is here to spill the tea. They're going to let you guys know what you're getting up to in the future, what things are like for you, who you will become, and who you are currently becoming. So I will see you at the Tarot portion, pile 1. Hi Pile 1 Collective, welcome back to the Tarot portion of your reading. Without hesitation, let's get started and have a look at the cards we pulled for you. So I'm just going to pop your little octopus to the side for now, so we can have a look at these tarot cards. Don't worry if not all of the cards are in frame at first. I will lay the cards and then we will sort that out. But starting off with, we have got the Magician, a wonderful card to start off with, and the clarifier for that card is the 8 of Cups. We have then got the Hierophant reversed, and the clarifier for the Hierophant reversed is Justice. We have got the 5 of Swords reversed, and the clarifier for that is the Empress. We have got Strength, and the clarifier for Strength is Judgment reversed. And we have got the King of Cups, and the clarifier for the King of Cups is death. Okay, so I feel like, pile one, you and your younger self, you are just catching up, you're shooting the shit, and then your future self pulls up like, oh, you think that's good? Just you wait and see what we can do. And they're giving you this smug little knowing kind of smile. But then I'm also picturing this is a scene where your future self kind of leans over to your current self, like, this is so rude, but who is that? Like, have I met them before? Pointing at your younger self. Because future you recognizes current you, but younger you just feels so far away from your eventual trajectory that they become almost unrecognizable. And so current you leans back to future you and they're like, that's us, like literally just a year ago or whatever. And future you, they are in shock, they're in awe, but it's not in a bad way. It's kind of like they are endeared by it. They're like, oh really, that's us, like that's who we used to be, but they're just a baby. And it's actually really sweet. But I feel like future you would be very enthusiastic in terms of immediately identifying the potential in current you and younger you, because future you sees opportunities for growth in everything, whereas maybe a past version of you sort of lacked that confidence, and maybe you saw things as opportunities to fail instead of to succeed. That could be something that you've struggled with on a previous timeline. So this could be like your future self overhears younger you saying to current you, like, oh my gosh, what do you mean we can stick to a routine? I can't ever imagine myself doing that. And future you kind of wants to butt in and be like, stick to a routine, like we can do way more than just that. But I'm just seeing younger you just being completely awestruck and completely overwhelmed by this. So future you is like kind of wanting to tell you about all these amazing things that you're going to do, but current you might be a little bit like, oh, come on, let's not scare the poor girl or guy away. Like, current you is already a lot for younger you to take in and a lot to process. And I think this is just because future you is really enthusiastic generally and in love with their life and in love with these endless possibilities. But perhaps to this younger version of you, some of these things could be perceived as scary and things that they just didn't envision they would ever be able to do or to achieve. So I think current you is saying, you know, let's take it slow. This is a lot to process. They've only just managed to get their head around this one thing. Let's just pace ourselves with this other stuff. And future you is just like, my, oh my, we have a journey ahead of us then. And they're being sort of coy about it because they don't want to put you off. Because maybe this past version of you said like, oh, maybe one day I'll achieve XYZ. And that was the biggest you dreamt, because even that would be this monumental achievement. But this future version of you is like, but wait, there's more. Like, we can dream so much bigger than that. And future you is saying that when you reach that place and you attain that goal that once seemed so far off, that's only like the tip of the iceberg. That is tiny compared to what you will go on to achieve. But they know that the thought of that could be kind of overwhelming, so they are being advised by current you to keep stum when it comes to this. I don't know why, but I keep getting something about somebody writing a book. So this could be like your future self turns up and younger you is like, can you believe we are finally writing that book we've always wanted to write? And future you is saying, oh, we're not just writing a book, we are actually getting the book published. We are actually showing someone our work. In the future, we've got 10 bestsellers. These books have hundreds of reviews. But for younger you, if even the mere thought of starting to push past some of those limiting beliefs and actually start writing the book, or even just showing it to like one person, if that was like a source of concern and felt overwhelming in the past, or something you never thought you'd actually get round to doing, the thought of people all around the world leaving reviews on your work could be absolutely terrifying. So I think that's why current you is stepping in and saying like, maybe we'll go into that later. Like, just let young me process actually having the courage to write the book in the first place. It doesn't have to be that example, but I'm just trying to portray the vibe I'm getting from this. It's like future you wants to kind of get ahead of themselves with all of these exciting possibilities, because future you is someone who has allowed themselves to dream and they do really know what they're capable of. But current you is maybe, I don't want to say more grounded, but potentially more tethered to seeing things from a critical lens rather than fully giving into the flow and to creativity. I feel like in this scenario, younger you is this person who is full of wonder, but they feel like they have to live vicariously through other people when it comes to big dreams of theirs. And current you is the person who has started to make some of those dreams happen, and they are implementing things in their daily life that push them towards that. They're transforming these dreams into more tangible realities, but they also kind of act as the voice of reason in that they are trying not to get ahead of themselves. They're saying, like, let's just take it one day at a time. And future you is this person who has been proving to themselves that they are actually capable of so much more than they initially thought due to these tangible things they've been doing. And so they're like, yes, you are allowed to have wonder, you're allowed to dream big, because holding on to that as well as doing the work is what's going to get you places. So one way this conversation could play out is like maybe young you almost feels starstruck or intimidated by future you, and they're kind of like, you know, what's it like to be a best-selling author, because they've always wanted to do that deep down, but they've convinced themselves that couldn't be their story. And it's as though future you wants to just get up and shake younger you, like, you're asking me what it's like to be it. Kid, you are going to live it. This is your dream. You are going to find out. And current you steps in like, well, let's just wait a second. You know, we've only finished a few chapters. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. And future you is like, no, don't listen to them. We are going places and you better believe it. We are going to make magic happen. And it's almost like young you was obsessed with current you because they seemed so adult and so sophisticated and like they knew better. But deep down, they have always wanted to allow themselves to dream big and to wonder. And so this future self is coming in and saying, it's okay to do that. In fact, you should do that. It's making them like, wow, now I'm going to listen to this person. And so when current you is saying things like, maybe we should slow down, young you is like, no, let future me speak, because future you is connecting with this very young, innocent, whimsical part of your soul that needs to be heard. And I think current you is maybe a bit more tentative, perhaps because they've not been doing this as long as future you, so they don't know how much of this can be trusted or how far it can go yet. But your future self is trying to tell you that you are capable of anything and everything you set your mind to, and you do not have to put a limit on what is and isn't for you, because what you are doing now, that's maybe something you never thought was possible, and here you are doing it in your current form. And here your younger self is being so proud of you for that. And it doesn't even have to be anything major. For some of you, it could just be like, you didn't even think you'd be here surviving at this point in your life. And so your current self is like, I'm here, I'm surviving. But they could still be in kind of survival mode. Whereas that future self is like, but babe, we're not just surviving here. We are fucking thriving. Like, we are having fun out here in this future. But it could be like current you is still not able to fully believe that. They are committed to taking the steps necessary to get to that place though. And I think future you is also saying like, your willpower extends way beyond what you can see in front of you just at this moment. They're saying you are a lot more powerful than what you realize. And in the future, you might be capable of influencing not just yourself, but other people. Like, you have an impact on people's lives. And if younger you knew what you were doing in the future, they'd be like, who, me? Like, nah, that's not for me. They wouldn't believe the leagues you're going to be playing in. And this is going to involve doing something within your life that is incredibly emotionally fulfilling for you. I feel like one message from your future self to your past self, it's like they're saying, we are way more calm now and we are way more in control of our mind and our emotions. And current you is maybe saying, well, actually, I have been working on that and I have been seeing some progress. To which future you says, well, continue the way you've been going on and you'll see that that's only the start of the progress you're going to make. They're saying it's like a muscle. They're advising you to keep practicing. So this could be in terms of keeping your thoughts in check before your thoughts spiral and things like that, just as one example. They are saying you are going to find some kind of inner strength that you didn't know you had, and it's going to really allow you to come out of your shell and do the things that you love and the things that align with you at this deeper soul level. And this is like the future version of you, although they might have got carried away initially, it's just because they were really excited to tell you about all your hidden potential. They're like, I know how you're feeling right now, but it is going to get so much better. And they're just very eager about this. But ultimately, they do know how to listen and they know how to handle everything with care and compassion. That is one of their strengths. And I feel like particularly this is in terms of the way you speak to yourself and the way you treat yourself and the compassion that you have towards all these past versions of you. Because although current you is doing the thing and you're like working on it, you don't maybe feel fully, I guess, out of the woods just yet. By which I mean, maybe you haven't managed to unload all of these limiting beliefs, or you're still in some kind of conflict with yourself when it comes to having the courage to be seen and things like that. So if in a conversation, this younger version of you is saying to future you, oh my gosh, I've always dreamed of doing XYZ, but I thought it was silly to think I could do that. Can you tell me more about it? Current you could just be being a bit more cautious and saying like, well, it is a bit silly and maybe we're not ready to hear that yet. We don't need to get ahead of ourselves. We don't need to get an inflated ego when we're not at the place to be considering that yet. So just chill. And future you is like, no, both of you, it's okay. Younger me, it's okay to dream. And current me, it's okay to feel scared about what's possible. I hear both of you, and although I can't tell you everything, I can tell you that both of you have this immense courage and you can make whatever you want to happen. And it is not without challenges, but you are going to get to where you need to be, and I am living proof of that. And current you could be a little bit more skeptical, like, wait, are you really me? You sound so sure of yourself. And future you is like, yep, and you will be too when you are living my reality. And meanwhile, younger you just has their mouth open in awe because they feel like they are in a dream and they have to pinch themselves to figure out if any of this is real. I feel like future you has discovered the art of implementing the practical whilst also not losing sight of why they are doing this in the first place, because I see future you as somebody who is very fulfilled and content. There's this feeling of major satisfaction. So maybe current you struggles when it comes to, I think, recognizing their achievements, but also when it comes to chasing goals. You know, maybe when current you accomplishes a goal, although younger you would be so amazed by that, current you is kind of like, okay, now what? And I think future you has come to this place where they are learning to enjoy the journey and the destination, and they're really appreciating each step of that and what brings them joy. They are saying like, I'm loving the process rather than just kind of rushing to get the certificate or get the reward at the end. And I think future you is reassuring current you that they will overcome any self-doubt that they're currently experiencing. And it's okay if they don't fully accept their own power now, because if they just continue taking these steps day by day, one day the enormity of their power is going to be so unavoidable and so obvious to them and everyone around them that it is going to hit them like a train, that they never needed to doubt their capabilities. So future you is saying it's okay if you don't fully believe it right now, but you will. I also feel like I'm getting a message about walking the path less travelled, which is a phrase I don't really use, but that is what I'm hearing. I'm also hearing someone say, is it what my parents wanted? And this doesn't have to be literal, but this could be you asking, like, if you are following a traditional path, if your parents or family had certain career or relationship expectations for you. And future you is saying, no, but it's going to make you so happy anyway. And it doesn't have to be an expectation from your parents, literally. It could be if you know your parents have like certain criteria you need to meet in order to be considered an acceptable human being. But I'm interpreting it more as like a metaphor, like parents being representative of, you know, maybe societal expectations. So take it in whichever way it applies. But I think your future self is saying, no, we broke out of that. We went a different way, but we are so much better for it. And if current you or younger you is kind of concerned about that right now, future you is reassuring you that this is what you wanted. They are saying, trust me, this is something we had to do so that we could become who we are. We had to walk away from something so that we could come back to bigger and better. And they are emphasizing that it's really important for you specifically, Pal One, to do something outside of the box. They are saying like you don't have to stick to the plan or you don't have to do things in this one rigid and conventional way. In fact, in order to do yourself true justice, you have to separate yourself from that. And it is going to take courage, it is going to take strength. But once you are on that path, you will know it is the right thing and you will realize that there's no going back. You will feel content in that you're saying like, this is where I'm meant to be. This is the only way to offer justice to this version of you. It's to break free and walk away from something, whether that be a relationship in your life, a job, someone's expectations, or a belief that you hold about yourself. You are going to get so much more clarity and you're going to feel so much more in balance with yourself once you've put that behind you and once it's over and done with. And I feel like your future self is reassuring you that once this particular chapter is over, the conflict that you might currently have within yourself or with other people, it is going to be a thing of the past. Maybe the judgment that you give yourself or the judgment you feel you experience when it comes to others, like that is going to be over and done with, that is going to be dead. And I feel like the current and young versions of you still cannot quite believe the future version of you is possible, or they're not really sure if it is even really you. And they're like, you know, how does this happen? I just can't see myself ever being where you are. That seems like such a pipe dream. But future you is saying like you are already doing it, you're already living it. You just have to keep doing and keep living because these things come with time and with experience, and one day it is going to make sense. You will learn lessons along the way that make you stronger and help you find this balance. You just have to believe that all of this is waiting for you on the other side of apprehension and the other side of fear. So that is what I'm getting for your tarot reading, pile one. We are going to finish this reading by looking at a couple more oracle cards. And this is like the main thing that your future self wants you to know, the main advice that they can give you, perhaps. Okay, so we have 2 cards here, and the first one is bake magic cookies. I can give good things to myself and others. And we have galactic wisdom. I draw upon galactic wisdom to make enlightened choices. So like I said, these cards are intended to represent the overarching energy of your future self and kind of the advice that they want to leave you with. So with this galactic wisdom, I feel as though your future self wants your current self and past self to know that the place where they're at, they have much more trust in themselves. They know that they've now developed the organizational skills to follow through on their plans, and that allows them to rely on themselves more and to progress further in terms of these goals. I also feel like this cookies card is interesting because baked items like cookies are considered a treat, and often you find that people like to assign moral value to having cookies, or they'll say like, oh, you can only have a cookie when you finish your dinner and things like that, as just one example. But I feel like your future self is reminding you that it's okay to eat the cookie now. Not literally, but like it's okay to enjoy life as it is right in this moment. You don't have to wait for some unidentifiable day in the future to give yourself the good things. I don't know, we mentioned about your current self sort of stepping in and saying like, oh, don't get carried away to younger you and to future you. And I'm getting the image of young you, you know, reaching out for that cookie, and current you being like, hands off, you are going to wait until after dinner, or you are going to wait until after you've met this certain goal. But future you wants to tell you, like, sometimes it's okay to just enjoy the cookie in the moment that you want it. And I think they're saying in that, like, it's okay to dream big. Sometimes eating the cookie or having the dream can be a satisfying or magical experience that actually helps us further our capability for magic to happen. Because that cookie might contain magical properties that give us that energy and that spark to push further forward and really step into our own power. So if you bake these magic cookies and then you go and hide them away in a jar somewhere, telling yourself like hands off because you don't want to get tempted, then you are denying yourself the magic that is not only meant to be enjoyed by you but also shared with others. And I feel like this is saying it is okay to enjoy the cookies when they are at their best as well, like when they're fresh and when the magic is the most potent. So it's okay to give yourself good things, because then you're going to be able to share that goodness with the people around you and you're going to really get to enjoy it. So that is what I'm getting for your reading, pile one. I really hope you enjoyed this reading today. If you did like the reading, please don't forget to like the video. Please comment if you get a chance. Let me know what resonated, or just let me know which pile you picked if you get a moment. Please consider subbing if you haven't done so already. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, and I will see you in the next one. Hi pile 2, if you chose pile 2 and the Good Karma Tarot with the blue octopus, you are in the correct place. Welcome to your reading, friends. If you would like a full breakdown regarding what this reading will entail, please check out my introduction. I go through absolutely everything there. I will also leave some details in the pinned comment for your reference. If you want to take a quick glance at that, go right ahead so that you know what to expect. However, we are going to be starting off by looking at your oracle cards as an energy check. So this will be a conversation between your current self and younger self for the most part. Then we are going to move on to the tarot portion, where your future self will be joining us and adding their input. So this reading is basically, if you, your younger self and your future self got the chance to sit down and catch up, what would you discuss? What would you want to know? And what would you want to tell each other if you did get that opportunity? So this is a reading that will hopefully give you the chance to reflect, but we're also going to be touching on future possibilities. So hopefully you are going to come away feeling uplifted. So usual disclaimer, this is a collective reading and not everything will resonate. Please take what's for you and always leave the rest for somebody else. With all of that said, and without any further hesitation, let's get started with your reading today. So we are going to be unveiling these oracle cards and looking at the overarching energy between your younger self and your current self. So we have got over here, starting on the left, barging badger, determination, focus, advancement, tireless and resourceful one, share your ferocious spirit and spunk. We have got turn criticism into kindness. We have got spring. We have got imagine. We have got number 21, trust. And we have got number 6, dragons, slay them all. So I always like to start the readings by mentioning the numbers on the cards. These could be relevant in terms of a date, a month, a year, or an amount of days, months, or years. This could be an age or an age gap, or something significant astrologically, like a particular house. It could be a life path or an angel number or synchronicity you are seeing a lot of. These do not have to apply for this to be your pile. It's just an extra little confirmation if any of these do resonate. So the numbers 6 or 21 could be significant. You could be seeing a lot of the numbers 2121 or 666. The number 9 could also be relevant if we add up those numbers. So perhaps somebody is born on the 6th, 9th, or 21st of a month. June or September could be relevant. 6th house, Mercury or Virgo energy might be significant. 9th house, Jupiter or Sagittarius energy could also be significant here. Okay, so for you, pal 2, I think your current self is choosing to visit your younger self during a particularly difficult time in your younger self's life. So this could be current you having a conversation with child or teenage you. And I feel like particularly for those of you who had a difficult childhood experience where maybe you spent a lot of time wondering if things could be different, your current self is wanting to show up for you during that time. Maybe it's like because they can't take you out of that situation, they can't save you from it, even though they might like to. But what they can do is give you faith that eventually it won't be this way. They're saying, like, trust me, it's not going to be like this forever. And I'm hearing that current you is encountering younger you during a time where younger you had little to no control over what was going on in their life. They didn't have a great deal of agency during this time. So it doesn't have to be childhood specifically if that doesn't apply. But I always think, childhood is a time where even those of us who have reasonably healthy childhoods, we still don't always feel like we have authority in our own lives because we might have to abide by the rules of our parents or teachers or society generally. And even in like a best case scenario where we have a good relationship with our parents or we enjoy school, I feel like a lot of us have those moments where we do really want more autonomy or we want to be able to picture a life where we have more say in what we do. So it could be that you had a decent childhood, but there was a moment where you were experiencing some difficulty and trying to imagine a life where you were not in the situation that you were in. And it's like your current self is meeting you in that moment to say, like, I'm here and I can't stop this from happening, but I can tell you that it won't be this way forever. And for some of you, maybe you're very well aware that these moments were more frequent for you because perhaps you did not have a good childhood or you did not have a pleasant experience at school. So this could be in relation to toxic family members, people who mistreated you or mistreated each other and you were a witness to that. This could be in relation to bullying or people making you feel dismissed and unimportant. Even if it's not in relation to your childhood, it could be during a period of your life where you were in a controlling relationship or you felt like things would never get better, there was no escape. It definitely feels like a moment you had where you were at your lowest and you needed this guidance, you needed the support, you needed somebody to come and tell you, you can get through this, like just one day at a time, this will not last a lifetime, even if it feels like it's lasting a lifetime in the moment. So it could be that your current self met you during this moment where you were praying for this to end because they're saying like, I want to save you, I want to offer you a helping hand. And if I can't do that by physically removing you from this, all I can do is tell you that I am here, that I am listening, and that I'll be there for you for when you get out of this, because you will get out of this. You have to trust me on that. You have to have faith. It feels like this moment was almost a test of your faith, or it was some dark time period in your life where you were saying like, I can't see a way out of this, or what if it never gets better? You could have been questioning that. But something within you made you keep holding on and made you continue to try even when you wanted to give up. And I think your current self is so unbelievably proud of you for believing in them and not giving up, even if it seemed like impossible odds at the time. This could have been during a time where you felt like you had lost everyone important to you or everyone was against you and you felt just completely left out in the cold. Because it feels like your current self is saying to younger you, you've been in this deep, deep winter for a long time, but trust me when I say, if there is a winter, there is a spring, and spring is going to come for you. Your current self is saying to younger you, like, hold my hand and let me tell you about how the days are going to get brighter and longer. Things might feel barren now, but they are going to grow back better than ever before. And you're going to have so much more colour coming back into your life soon. I feel like your current self is approaching younger you and asking you to really imagine this. And maybe your imagination was one of your forms of escapism growing up. And younger you could be like, well, If I have nothing else, I always have my imagination. It might be hard to picture something different at times, but one thing that nobody can ever take away from me, even if I have nothing else to my name, it's my imagination and my inner sanctuary. And your current self is highlighting that here, so they could be saying like, your imagination is one of your biggest strengths and one of the things that's helped you see a way out of some of these challenging situations. And I think your current self is proud that you never ever lost sight of your vision, even when your environment became very cloudy or even felt completely empty. It's like you were able to picture more for yourself, and holding that vision helped you get through some really, really, really tough times. So current you is telling you that your imagination is so powerful. They could also be telling you that some of the things you have now, you didn't start off with those things. And so they could be reminding you how powerful of a manifester you are, because they're saying like some of the things you have or the life you have now, remember that time when you thought you would never have any of that, or, you know, maybe in some instances you thought you wouldn't even be here, like you wouldn't survive the situations you were being faced with. And I'm so sorry if you did ever experience anything like that, pal, too. But current you is saying you always knew that you were meant for more, so you did survive that. I'm getting emotional. And they're congratulating you for using whatever tools you needed to get through that situation. So this could have been like mental health related for some of you, and you could have really struggled in the past with your health or mental health. And some of you, it's as though you held it in because you weren't able to access support for that when you were younger. I feel like current you is just honestly wanting to hold you because they know that none of this has been easy. And they're also saying it was never your responsibility to hold all this in or to hold so many secrets. They're saying something about like you held on to so many secrets that weren't yours and they should have never been yours. Some of you could have kind of been parentified, or you were expected to grow up before your time and you were privy to some adult conversations that were not appropriate. And maybe some of you internalize this as normal, and younger you is sort of like, what can you do? And current you is kind of angry on your behalf. Current you is saying like, I wish I could have protected you, or you should have been protected. And current you can see that situation for what it is, and they can see that you should have never been made responsible for whatever this was. You should have never had to hold on to all of that. So I feel like current you is saying like, all those secrets you've had to keep with you, it is okay to release them. It's okay to unburden yourself. You don't have to pretend it didn't happen. You don't have to push it down and bury it. Like, I'm here, I'm listening, and we can talk about this. And I feel like younger you is kind of passing some of this off as like not a big deal, but current you knows how wrong it was, and they're saying like, you don't have to pretend that it didn't affect us. It's okay to be angry about this. And I think current you is kind of wanting to come in as this fierce protector and this person who is there to defend you when nobody else would or nobody else could. I think younger you doesn't like feeling sorry for themselves because, quite honestly, they're saying they don't have time to feel sorry for themselves, and they are just focused on survival. They're just focused on getting out of that situation. But current you wants to honour the injustice of something you went through. They want to hold space for younger you to process this thing that you went through. They want to be that source of comfort for you, because it's almost like now they've come out of it, they're viewing things from almost a third party perspective where they can see how wrong or how unfair something was, and they just keep saying, I'm so sorry. And I'm also hearing you were just a baby, and I don't think this is literal, but I think it's because I'm thinking of springtime, and when there's all these new innocent animals being born, it's like current you is saying, you shouldn't have had to cope with that. You didn't have the experience for it. You were so innocent and you were filled with so much love, and you'd only just really come into the world, and this situation shouldn't have tried to take that away from you. So they're acknowledging something dark that you went through, and I'm getting this image of current you just holding your hand throughout this. I'm literally seeing an image of hands up close, and current you is rubbing younger you's hand, like consoling younger you. But maybe younger you, it's like they can't rub back because they are still paralysed by this fear. They have to stay perfectly still. And current you, they wish that they could get you out of that situation, but if they can't, the very least they can do is sit with you and sit with that pain and console you and tell you it's going to be okay. They want to offer you that small bit of comfort in the moment at the very least. Another image I'm getting, I don't know why this is very specific, but I am seeing somebody tied up in specifically a really dark bathroom. And you don't have to take this literally as an example. This can be more metaphorical. And I don't know why it's a bathroom. Maybe a bath is relevant for somebody here. Maybe for someone, the bathroom was like the only place that you could get some degree of peace and quiet or have any privacy for a very short time. Like you could temporarily escape for a bit, even if there was chaos going on outside of that bathroom. And that's not for everyone. But anyway, the image I'm getting is of a bath and somebody tied up with ropes by their hands, and they are trying to find any object they can around them to untie these ropes. Meanwhile, the ropes are kind of like digging into their skin and it's hurting them, and they just want to cry and scream, but they don't have time to give in to these emotions because they are just so focused on getting these ropes undone. So that's younger you, and it's like current you in this image that I'm getting is sat behind you, rubbing your back and telling you it's all going to be better. And maybe that offers little consolation to young you in the moment. Like a back rub doesn't make everything miraculously better when you are going through hell and you are in pain. But if that's all current you can do for you to let you know you are not alone and that you will get out of this, then that is what they're doing. Even if they hate seeing you going through that pain, I'm seeing like they have silent tears falling down their face because they know that this should not be happening at all. But if it is happening and there's nothing they can do to help you through that, they are going to guide you through that, and they are going to try and make you as comfortable as they can and let you know they are with you in an otherwise very uncomfortable moment, to say the least. It's more than uncomfortable, but I can't think of the words to describe it right now. I also feel like current you is trying to console younger you by giving younger you these repeated affirmations to try and get you to believe that things will be okay. And another image I'm getting, and again, this is not to be taken literally, but it's just to represent the overall vibe of like how I see younger you and current you kind of interacting. It reminds me of like on TV shows when somebody is giving birth and they are in absolute agony. Sometimes you will see that the father will be at that person's side saying, come on, you can do this, it's just a few more pushes, and then we are going to have this beautiful, healthy baby. Meanwhile, to the mum, that is like little consolation because they are in the worst pain of their life. And so sometimes that's why you'll see on TV shows the mum will be like, just shut up, I don't care, I just want this baby out of me. And they're squeezing the life out of the father's hand because they truly have nowhere else to put that pain. And usually if the father has empathy, they feel terrible in that situation because there's nothing they can do to help other than to offer these words of affirmation and just to be there, because they are not the medical professional. They can't make it less painful, they can't make the baby come any faster, and they can't take away the mother's pain from her. So all they can do is be like, you know, keep squeezing my hand, allow that pain to come out, and all I can do for you is be by your side as you scream. But it's awful for them too, to see their partner in pain like that. And I feel like that's what your current self is doing for you. They are like, I can't make this physically easier for you, but I am with you, I am by your side. And I feel as though the affirmations they are trying to give you, they're like whispering things into your ear, trying to let you know that yes, it does get better. And they are saying some of these things to try and get you to tap into your imagination and to actually visualize the ways that it can get better for you. So if there was ever a point in your life when you were younger that you had to kind of close your eyes and just hope and pray your way out of it, and in the process of that, you were able to envision yourself being removed from that situation and at least being safe, I think that could have been your current self helping you with that. I feel like this was an instance where your younger self is trying to like drown out the noise of what's going on around them, and they're trying to like focus through gritted teeth on what the current self is saying to them. So in that moment, the conversation they might have had could have been like your younger self asking for a sign that things get better. Maybe they're saying, I can't see a way out of this, I feel trapped, does it get better? And your current self is trying to soothe them, like, yes, I know it's hard to believe right now, but it really does. And maybe your current self is asking, but what can I possibly do with all this anger and all this pain? And I'm hearing your current self say, you use it as fuel. And that's really important here, because I think your current self is someone who is very powerful at transmuting pain into something else entirely. This could be in regards to some kind of creative project where you have to use your imagination, and that's why your current self might say to your younger self, never ever lose touch with that. I feel like your current self is this fierce protector and this advocate, and if your younger self was in this situation where they felt trapped or they felt powerless or like they couldn't defend themselves, I feel like your current self would reassure them and say like, don't worry that you feel this way right now, because you are going to beat this, and the place we are at right now, we are more than capable of slaying the dragons. I think they're telling your younger self not to give up, because whatever happened here, it made you a fighter, and You've turned whatever pent up rage you might have internalized due to this situation into energy that fuels some of your passions. And I think your current self wants this younger self to know you have such an independent spirit now. You are never ever going to be in a place again where you feel powerless because somebody is controlling you or telling you what to do or taking away your autonomy. Your current self is saying you have the control now, you have the power. And I feel like they're also wanting younger you to know you do not have to ask permission for things anymore. If you want something, you are going to go after it and you don't let anyone get in your way. I feel like if your younger self were to ask, like, do we get the confidence to break free? Are we capable of sticking up for ourselves? Your current self is saying, yes, we are more than capable. This is a world of difference to the place you feel stuck in right now. And I feel like your current self is reassuring your younger self that the opinions and criticisms of other people bother you so much less now. I do think your current self definitely recognizes that the hard time you had in the past has had an impact on who you can trust. And I definitely think it's been a battle for your current self to start overcoming some of these insecurities. And I think your current self still does have a tendency to be quite self critical. And I think a part of them could be clinging on to some subconscious guilt or shame because maybe current you feels bad that they couldn't save this younger version of you. Almost how, like in that example of giving birth, that father would be on the sidelines feeling bad or feeling useless or helpless because they can't take the pain away from that person that they love. So they're kind of like, I wish I could do more, but they feel stuck. So maybe current you feels guilty for some of the ways they've reacted as a result of this trauma. Maybe a part of current you struggles with this concept of reacting to trauma because a part of them feels like, I was younger then, but now I should be over it and I shouldn't be letting this get to me. They're frustrated at the idea of carrying this around with them forever. But to get some advice from younger you, I think younger you would like to remind you that there was a time when you didn't even think you would exist in this moment you're existing in right now. There was a time when all younger you ever wanted was to get out of that situation and stop feeling that pain, and they'd like to remind you that you have given that to them when nobody else could. They are saying, but you did save us because you're here, you did it. And I think they're saying, like, don't beat yourself up about not being perfect right now because younger you knows that you had to take on all of their emotions when they couldn't do it. They know that you had to use up all of your strength keeping things together so that they could focus on escape or on survival. So younger you is not disappointed in you. Younger you is so proud of you. And they're saying you couldn't have done more, like you did the absolute best you could in that situation, because some of you are still kind of struggling when it comes to being harsh or being critical on yourself or feeling like you should be further along or you should have everything together. But younger you is not looking at you like, oh, what do you mean we're not a rocket scientist? That's disappointing. They're saying the main thing is we are here, and that's more than we once thought was possible. And everything else we can deal with. Let's just be in the present and be appreciative that we are still alive in this moment. So that is what I'm getting for your oracle reading, pal, too. I know these messages were kind of deep, but somebody needed to hear them. We are now going to be moving on to your tarot reading, where future you is stepping into the spotlight. So you and younger you are like, oh my gosh, future me, we have been waiting for you forever. What's going on? Fill us in. And your future self is here to spill the tea. They're going to let you guys know what you're getting up to in the future, what things are like for you, who you will become, and who you are becoming. Thank you so much for listening so far, pal 2, and I'll see you at your tarot reading. Hi, pal 2 Collective. Welcome to the tarot portion of your reading. Without hesitation, let's get started and have a look at the cards that we pulled for you. I'm just going to pop your cute little octopus to one side for now. By the way, don't worry if the cards aren't in frame at first. I will lay the cards and then I'll make sure that they're in frame before I get started with the reading. But starting off with, we have got the Knight of Wands reversed, and the clarifier is the Page of Cups in reverse. We have got the Magician, and the clarifier is the Hanged Woman in reverse. We have got the Lovers, and the clarifier for the Lovers is the Fool. We've got the Tower, and we've got the World reversed as the clarifier for the Tower. We've got the King of Wands, and we've got the Ten of Swords reversed as the clarifier. Okay, I actually love this for you, pal 2. I am going to try my best to describe the scene playing out in my head, and please bear in mind this is not to be taken super literally. I'm just using, I guess, exaggerated characters to showcase what your trajectory might look like. So in your oracle, we spoke a little bit about your younger self being in this situation where they were tied up in pain, trying to break free. And in that moment, your current self did all they could by comforting younger you as best they could and telling them, you know, it's going to be okay. We are going to get you out. Trust me. So they are kind of this voice of calm in the storm when young you doesn't have anyone else to trust. So young you and current you do break free and you do get out of that. But the scene I'm getting now, it's like current you takes you to the hospital to get checked out because, you know, they're just trying to do the right thing. They want to nurture you and look after you the way you deserve. And young you might be like, can we just forget it? Like, we're free now. Can we just pretend it didn't happen and go and get ice cream? And current you is like, oh, sweetheart, we have to get this checked out. These ropes were tied really tight and they could have done some permanent damage. So let's just wait and let's just see the doctor. Well, the doctor arrives, but the doctor isn't just a doctor. This is future you. And they look at young you and they're like, you're going to be absolutely fine. In fact, I've never seen any other body that's as capable of healing as yours is. Like, that is miraculous. And when they say this, they are certain, they are so sure. This isn't a mask of confidence. This is true, authentic confidence. Whereas when your current self was saying, like, it's okay, everything's going to be okay, they said it because they knew it's what you needed to hear. And they were kind of wearing this mask of confidence almost to convince themselves. And yes, they might have known that you were going to get out of the bad situation. But now that you are out, they still have some concerns of like, but what about the lasting damage from these ropes? And the doctor is like, yes, I can see that this has caused damage, but this is going to heal. And current you is kind of being a little bit like a neurotic, overly anxious parent, like, oh, but are you sure? Like, it looks really bad. And the doctor, future you, is saying, I know it looks bad, but trust me, I've been doing this years. I've seen thousands like this. I've been doing this for a long time. And I know that this is a strong body. Like, this is going to be fine. And current you is like, phew, because you knew that younger you was going to get out of that situation, but you didn't know when the wounds were going to heal. You didn't know if you would always have to face certain battles in relation to this long-lasting damage. But future you is saying, no, it's not like that. Future you is maybe saying, you don't have to be on guard 24/7. Like, if young you wants to go and play with their friends while this is healing, let them. You can relax a little because you need to take some time to nurture you as well. And that could be a thing for you in the current energy you're in, pal, too. Because obviously, you know, this whole scene that I'm describing right now, it's more of a metaphor for the wounds you've carried with you. And you might now still worry about those wounds because a past version of you, all they could focus on was just survival and just getting out. They didn't have time to focus on these wounds. So you could still think about the way a situation from your past has impacted you. And this could be in terms of like, maybe because you didn't have a person that you could trust in this past situation. In the present day, maybe that has made you hyper vigilant or extra cautious, or it's made you feel like people are out to get you, or you find it difficult to trust people, like you always have to be on guard or in control. And this doctor, this expert, this future you is saying like, it's okay, you can let go. And they're saying, I'm going to show you what it means to truly come home to yourself. Because some of you, it's like you're out of the danger zone, but you're still waiting for the other shoe to drop at times. You're still thinking like, what if it goes bad again? And you're waiting for things to descend into chaos. And maybe that means that you're not allowing yourself to be fully present and enjoy the moment because you are so wrapped up in overthinking about the things that could go wrong. Or maybe you're focused on saving other people because you somehow feel that that would make up for a time when you weren't able to save yourself. And in this scenario, maybe you feel like, what if those people who tied younger me up with a rope come back for them? So you're saying like, I have to sacrifice my sleep and stay up all night by the door in case they come back. So this could look like overextending yourself when it comes to the people in your life as a way of keeping them safe and protecting them, but maybe it's at the expense of your own well-being. This could also look like exerting too much control in certain situations as a reaction to a time where you felt out of control. And some of you act that way, but then you also beat yourself up over it and you're like, I don't want to be that way. I don't want to react like this. And I feel like your future self, it's as though they want to prescribe you this medicine that briefly allows you to see into the future. And once you can see this, it's like you can actually relax. You're like, oh, it's not that bad. Maybe I was catastrophizing things. And future you is like, yeah, but that's understandable because you've seen the worst of humanity. So anyone in your position would do the same. But I hope this shows you that we are not going to be in that position forever and that you can relax. And it won't be this specific example for you, but one example I'm getting, it's like, let's say when you were growing up, you were around adults who didn't protect you the way they should have done. Maybe if you then grew up and had your own kids and still felt as though like certain adults aren't to be trusted, maybe it made you strict with your own children. So this could look like you arguing with your kids because you felt like you had to say no to things in order to keep them safe. And obviously it was coming from a loving place, but maybe you were like, I don't want to be that way. I want to be able to let them have fun and I want them to trust me when it comes to being honest about where they're going. I don't want them to feel like they have to lie. Like I want a good relationship with my children. And again, it won't be that exact example for you, but it is something where you are aware that this kind of residual trauma has had a bit of an impact on your behavior. And sometimes you've been hard on yourself when it comes to how you've dealt with that. Maybe you've said like, why can't I just let this go? Why can't I just loosen up? Why am I so on guard about this? Why am I so anxious about it? But future you is saying they understand that you had to do some of these things to try and keep yourself sane when your mind was just so full of chaos. But they're saying you are not always going to be in a battle with yourself like this. Future you wants to tell you that in the future, you will actually feel so much more balanced. And not only will you be more in harmony with yourself, but this feels like you have found people to be around who you actually feel in true alignment with. You have found contentment within your interpersonal relationships, and you are capable of holding space for yourself and processing your feelings without sabotaging things because you think that they're too good to be true or you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Future you could be letting you know that you have found healthier outlets and ways of processing things and that you're not going to be feeling like a victim, you are going to be feeling like a survivor. Future you is also telling you that you are a cycle breaker. There's something about intergenerational trauma being highlighted here. There's something about you being the one to break a pattern. I feel like your future self does keep pointing me towards saying something about the relationships in your life, and it doesn't have to be romantic relationships necessarily. And this message won't be for everyone. We are all at different stages of the timeline. But if some of you are worried that you'll never be able to find a healthy, healing relationship because in the past you've subconsciously gravitated towards dysfunction, I feel like your future self is saying like, yeah, we don't do that anymore. And again, I know that won't be for everyone, so don't take it if it's not for you. It's not meant to be offensive in any way. But I think if we grow up in chaotic environments, it can be a lot easier to internalize this unconscious belief that chaos is safety. And so we might be pulled towards these situations that envelope us in these enormous emotional ups and downs. And sometimes we don't actually realize we're doing this. We repeat this pattern a few times and we get this deja vu like, wait, this experience that I witnessed in childhood is kind of playing out in front of me and that's not what I wanted for myself. And sometimes that's kind of that punch in the gut that we need to be like, I am going to be the one to break this pattern. And I feel like your future self is saying, we did that. So this could be something about healing your attachment style for those of you where that might apply, especially if you were ever the kind of person who felt like somebody being consistent was boring and somebody slightly unattainable was always more appealing to you. Your future self is like, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. And again, this doesn't have to be just with romance. This could be in the past gravitating towards emotionally unstable friendships or people generally, because on this subconscious level, it felt as though you wanted to save or fix this person. This could look like maintaining control by always choosing to leave a situation before the situation could go bad or before the situation could leave you. So you could have been the runner in certain dynamics. So one conversation you might have with your future self is like, oh, are we still with that person who made us jump through hoops to get their attention and who never texted us back? And future you is like, no, we left that a long time ago. We're on to better things now because we love ourselves and we now know how we need to be loved. Maybe you didn't know that before until these patterns sort of came in and slapped you in the face, metaphorically speaking. Current you might feel at times like you still have to wear a mask of confidence, whereas future you truly has the confidence. And I hear current you asking, how did that happen? Like, how did we get there? And I'm hearing future you say, something had to give. So I feel like this could be you saying, I'm done with falling into this pattern. whatever pattern relates to you. It doesn't have to be in terms of relationships with others. It could be about the relationship you have with yourself, a belief you hold about yourself, or something like that. But it feels like future you became who they are by saying, I am no longer doing that, or I'm no longer believing that. Something has to change here. I don't want to be this person, or I don't want to keep doing this. It's something along those lines where you get truly fed up and tired of this cycle, and you are just like, I'm over it. It's like everything needs to come undone so it can grow back bigger and better. For some of you, current you kind of wears this mask of aggression as a form of protection. It's very much this like, don't fuck with me vibe. But I think future you is saying like, sometimes you can be a little bit hasty at jumping to the worst conclusions. And they are saying that in the future, you are going to be a bit more balanced when it comes to knowing when to have your don't fuck with me face on versus when it's not needed. It's almost like as you experience more of life, you can kind of mellow out and become more gentle. And I think it's because the further you are away from this past situation, the more you're experiencing the good parts of life. And so you're starting to trust in that more and more. Like you're encountering better people, you feel better in yourself. And so you don't always have to have this guard up. And I feel like your future self wants to thank current you for being this fierce protector. And that's something that they've carried with them. But they're also saying, again, like you don't have to be on guard all the time. And I think for some of you, it's still quite difficult for you to admit when you're hurt. But I feel like your future self is reminding you, showing your authentic feelings doesn't make you less brave. In fact, it takes courage to show the real you. It takes more courage to show the real you than it does to convince everyone around you that you're fine, when future you knows that sometimes things do hurt you more than you let on. And they want you to be able to process those things. And again, this message won't be for all of you, but some of you have the tendency to escalate things because you always feel like to stay safe, you have to fight back and you have to defend yourself against the dragons or the enemy. And your future self is, on the one hand, proud of you because they're like, you are so determined to never go back to that place where you felt helpless. So good for you for advocating for yourself. But at the same time, I think future you is saying sometimes this might be a bit premature or a bit hasty. And sometimes you might preemptively attack because you recognize patterns and you're there with like your boxing gloves on ready to fight before anything has actually played out. Because again, you are hypervigilant to perceived attacks. And it's like some of you, when someone hurts your feelings, you might struggle with this tendency to immediately hurt their feelings right back in a worse way, rather than just saying like, hey, you upset me. And I'm not saying that's everyone, but it could be the case for some of you. And that's this immediate line of defense. And I feel like your future self is saying you can kind of handle that a bit better in the future because you've been able to process whatever has kind of led to you having to act that way in the first place. Maybe you make sure that you are heard now in response to a time when you were not heard or seen or validated in a past situation. But sometimes that could lead to you jumping the gun or getting the wrong end of the stick or hurting someone before they get the opportunity to hurt you. Some of you could have struggled with either your schmexual identity or with your image. Like maybe some of you have wanted to maintain control over these things in a response to a time where you didn't feel in control. So this could look like ED, restriction. This could also look like hyper schmexualizing yourself or your image as a way of making sure like, I am going to go out and do this before anyone can do this to me. So almost like I'm going to take advantage of myself so that nobody else can take advantage of me, or I'm going to make the decisions about what I do or don't put in my body, how much, how little, so that nobody else can decide that for me. And again, that won't be for everyone. Those are just real life examples of how this kind of thing might play out in a more tangible way. But I think your future self is reassuring you that you are going to find more balance and you're not going to feel in this constant state of worry that things are going to be taken away from you. I feel like all of these things that you struggle with or the things that you criticize yourself for, when your current self asks your future self about those things, your future self is like, we don't even worry about that. Like that doesn't even cross our mind anymore. I feel like your future self is telling you we are going to be so much more free. I also feel like they're saying to you that in the future, there's going to be so much more time for fun and adventures. I think your future self is a lot more spontaneous than current you, especially if current you has to have things a certain way or always has to follow a particular plan because that is how they feel the safest. I think future you is telling you we are going to get so much better at kind of just going with the flow and leaning into the moment and not feeling like we have to control every single aspect of our day. It's interesting because I think your future self is making it clear that you actually feel much more in control in the future. And it's actually because you have learned how to let go and how to surrender. You have released certain attachments to these negative patterns. And in the future, you are not assuming that your autonomy is going to be taken away from you. And so there isn't as much of a need to control everything in your environment. And your future self is saying that that allows you to have this more harmonious relationship with yourself and with others. And it also allows you to focus on more of the things that add joy to your life and just make you feel alive. Your future self wants to tell you that life in the future very much centers around you discovering and feeling proud of who you are outside of this context of fear or outside of this sense of danger that maybe you feel has been lingering, because you might have cultivated a false identity of who you are based on how you've had to survive rather than who you are outside of that survival situation. And all of this is about escaping and overcoming, but it's not just escaping the bad situation itself, it's escaping the things you have assigned to yourself based on how you dealt with that. And your future self is letting you know you are rising above that. Like, you are over the worst and you are learning from it. And every day that you learn from it, you're becoming this more confident version of you. You're becoming someone who can acknowledge, like, hey, I went through this crappy time that made me feel like I had to exert control in certain situations, but that doesn't make me a control freak. It doesn't make me someone who has to adopt those behaviors forever. And I think this realization is something that's allowing you to free up some space in your brain for other things. Your future self is saying that you're actually going to have more energy because maybe you're not constantly going to be ruminating and overthinking of these worst case scenarios. Again, I think you're going to just get to enjoy life a lot more. I think you're going to trust the process more, and you're going to be more optimistic about the people and experiences you encounter. It's like the world around you, you are going to be seeing it in this new light where not everything's scary. And I also feel like future you sees the funny side of things a lot more. I think future you laughs a lot. Like, things that previously would have offended you or upset you, things that would have triggered this trauma response, I feel like in the future you just laugh at those things. You don't take them on and internalize them as much anymore. You're not taking as much of that to heart. And previously, where maybe if someone upset you and you said, like, I don't care about that, I don't care, because you're convincing yourself that you didn't care, in the future, it's like you truly don't care. And so you can let it go with much more ease than you used to be able to. You're not getting as riled up about things because you just feel way more secure in where you are and who you are. So that is what I'm getting for your tarot reading, pal two. We are going to finish this reading with a little bit of closing guidance and advice. So these next couple of cards that I'm going to read are intended to represent the overarching energy of your future self, and it's just kind of extra confirmations that they want to leave you with, things to reflect on, and if they have any advice that they can give you, they are going to mention that now. So let's have a look at what we pulled for you, pal two. Okay, pal two, we've got number 27, send a letter to the universe, the world loves me. And we have got infinite potential. I am aware of my infinite potential and I strive to fulfill it every day. So for you, pal two, writing a physical letter could actually be really helpful for you, because you might very much be someone who needs a place to kind of brain dump all their feelings so you can look at them more objectively, not from a place of judgment, just from a place of, this is how I'm feeling right now, so you can allow those feelings to pass you by. I also feel like your future self is advising this because they're aware that it would be very easy for you to feel like the universe doesn't love you or the world doesn't have your back because of what you've experienced in the past. And I feel like they want you to remind yourself that you are still here, even if you've experienced moments that made you feel as though you wouldn't survive. And your future self might be saying, like, that tells you you are here for a reason and it's time to step up into your infinite potential. Because for a long time, maybe you have been focusing on survival, but I think they're saying maybe now is the time to stop talking yourself out of opportunities or convincing yourself it's going to be the worst case scenario before anything has ever happened. Because that's spending time ruminating that could be spent really tapping into your potential and this powerful ability to manifest the life you want. They're saying you don't have to resign yourself to a life spent always waiting by the door for somebody to break in or always trying to figure out people's motivations so you can decide who to trust and who to let in. Yes, it is good to listen to your intuition, but it's also important to understand when your anxiety is getting in the way of that and to stop weaving such a complex web that's going to keep you tangled when your energy is so much better invested elsewhere. I think your future self is reminding you it does not matter that not every single person you meet is trustworthy, as long as you can trust yourself, as long as you can depend on yourself. And they're saying you are capable of that and you have been doing it, like you've been doing it already, and you will continue to do this. You will continue to become this future version of you who is way more capable than what they might realize at this moment in time. So that is what I'm getting for your reading, pal 2. I really, really hope you enjoyed this reading today. If you did like the reading, please take a moment to like the video. Please comment and let me know what resonated, or just let me know which pal you picked if you don't feel comfortable. Let me know what resonated. Please sub if you haven't done so already. All that would help me out so much, and I would really appreciate it. With all of that said, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, and I will see you in the next one, pal 2. Hi pal 3, if you chose pal 3 and the Starbright tarot with this pink octopus, you are in the correct place. Welcome to your reading, friends. If you would like a full breakdown regarding everything this reading will entail, please check out my introduction. I go through absolutely everything there. I will also leave some details in the pinned comments for your reference. If you want to take a quick glance at that, go right ahead so you know what to expect. However, we are going to be starting off by looking at your oracle cards as an energy check. So this will be a conversation between your current self and your younger self for the most part. Then we're going to move on to the tarot, where your future self will be joining us and adding their input. So this reading is basically if you, your younger self and your future self got the chance to sit down and catch up, or what would you discuss, or what would you want to know, and what would you want to tell each other if you did get that opportunity. So this is a reading that will hopefully give you the chance to reflect, but we are also going to be touching on future possibilities, so hopefully you are going to come away feeling uplifted. So usual disclaimer, this is a collective reading and not everything will resonate. Please take what's for you and leave the rest for somebody else. With all of that said, and without any further hesitation, let's get started with your reading today. So we're going to be unveiling these oracle cards and looking at the overarching energy between your younger self and your current self. So starting off on the left over here, we have calm chameleon, versatility, camouflage, agility, careful creature, cloaked in colours, bless my heart with peace and patience. We have got trust your intuition, she's always right. We've got winter. We have got you have rights. We've got number 22, wisdom, bay. And we've got number 23, confidence, it comes with time and practice. So I always like to start the readings by mentioning the numbers on the cards. These could be relevant in terms of a date, a month, a year, or an amount of days, months, or years. This could be an age or an age gap, or something significant astrologically, like a particular house, or a life path, or this could be an angel number or synchronicity you are seeing a lot of. These don't have to apply for this to be your pile, it's just an extra confirmation for specific individuals, so you are welcome to take it if it does resonate. So we have the numbers 22 and 23. The 22nd or 23rd of a month could be significant, or maybe second or third house energy, Taurus and Gemini energy potentially. Because the number 2 is appearing 3 times, it could be that you're seeing a lot of the number 222, and maybe that's a prevalent synchronicity you might be noticing a lot of. The numbers 4, 5, or 9 could also be relevant, so 4th house Cancer energy, 5th house Leo energy, and 9th house Sagittarius energy. And the corresponding planets might be relevant to you also, so Sun and Moon energy, Venus, Mercury, and Jupiter. You could have prominent placements in terms of these planets or the aforementioned signs. Somebody here could have an April, May, or September birthday, although again, none of this has to resonate in order for this to still be your pile. Okay, so for you, pile 3, I'm sensing that there is a fairly significant age gap between current you and this younger version of you that you are meeting. And specifically for some of you, I'm hearing something about doubling your age. And it doesn't matter how old you are right now necessarily, but there is this overall sense of you having experienced a lot more of life and you are wanting to share some of this knowledge with younger you. So as a few examples, if you are 26 years old right now, we might be talking to 13-year-old you in this reading today. If you are 30 years old, we might be talking to 15-year-old you. If you are 50, we might be speaking with 25-year-old you. If you are 60, we could be speaking with 30-year-old you. You get the idea. So the age you are now doesn't matter, but the overall sense is that there is wisdom you have gained in this life that you could have only gained by actually living it. So even if you are fairly young in the sense that you still have a lot of your human life to live, I think you have learned a lot and you want to share what you've learned with this younger version of you who needs to hear it. It feels as though in whatever context this applies to you personally, your current self is saying, I know how this works. I've been doing this a while. I'm also hearing the phrase, I've been around the block. Like you're saying, I know how things operate. Let me give you some advice on this. Let me fill you in on the secrets. So to give you examples more relational to your age, if you are 26 right now and younger you always wondered what it would be like to have a grown-up job, let's say 26-year-old you could be saying to 13-year-old you, listen, I've been doing this for a while now. I know what I'm doing, let me tell you about it. Or alternatively, if you are 50 and younger you always wondered what it would be like to be married or raise a child, 50-year-old you could be saying to 25-year-old you, here I am, I know what it's like to raise a family, let me come and give you some pro tips because I know what I'm talking about. And it feels like this is a kind of wisdom that, again, only truly living through it can grant you. And I think that example of raising kids is a particularly good one because in this day and age, we have this wealth of information at our disposal on how to raise kids, what's healthy for them, what's not healthy for them, all this information about developmental milestones and things like that. But, and I say this as someone who is not yet a parent of a human child, I still feel like you can do all of the reading in the world, but probably nothing prepares you for the actual lived experience of raising a child. And any parents, feel free to correct me if you think I'm wrong about that. But I feel like there are a lot of child-free people who make judgments about parents and they're like, well, if I was a parent or when I'm a parent, I'd do this or I wouldn't do this or I'm going to do this. And I'm not talking about things that are like universally unacceptable. Like I don't think it's necessarily judgmental to say like I would never hit a child because that's just basic human decency. Like you should never hit anyone. I think that goes without saying. But I'm talking about the people who act kind of holier than thou when it comes to things like whether or not to breastfeed, or people who are like, well, if I was a parent, I would do everything by the book and completely perfect. And I feel like often those kinds of people, if they do become parents, and not everyone does or wants to, and that's okay too, but if they do, you often find that they end up eating their words because the reality is very different to what they've read about in books or on the internet. And sometimes you can have the very best intentions in the world, but your plan doesn't always go to plan. And it doesn't just apply to child rearing, it applies to many things. But the overall message I'm getting here is like some things you can understand by studying and by learning about, and other things you just have to live through to like fully get it. And current you has lived through things that they want to come and tell younger you about. I don't know why, but I'm also picturing like style content reels, and this is no shade whatsoever to those kinds of creators because I love that kind of thing, like getting cute outfit inspiration and things like that. But you'll come across these reels sometimes and it'll say like outfits for the office as one example, like workwear inspiration. And it's just very clear that the person making these reels has never actually worked in a corporate field and they have never consulted anyone or looked at anyone who actually works in an office because it'll be like a thigh length skirt in a plaid pattern and knee-high boots, which is like cute as fuck, but not for the office. And as somebody who has worked in many offices, I cannot name one time where that would be appropriate because we both know if I'm going to bend over in that, I'm going to get reported to HR. Like, it's not practical, it's not appropriate. They look absolutely amazing, but it feels more like the fantasy of what a younger person would imagine workwear to look like rather than something that's actually suitable attire for doing your job in. And that's the thing here, it's like your current self is very much like, I've got the real lived experience here to tell you what's what. For some reason, I keep hearing also like a kind of New Jersey or like mob wife accent. So I feel like your current self's archetype is kind of like your younger self's cool, glamorous auntie or something like that. I'm not going to do the accent I'm hearing because I would never in a million years be able to do that justice. But it's like your current self is coming in and saying, listen, honey, I've been around the block, let me tell you a thing or two. And I'm hearing like specifically tips your mother never told you, which doesn't have to be taken literally, but it's more like, you know, let's say if you were a teenage girl and you want advice on how to talk to boys, your mum might be like, well, you shouldn't be talking to boys, you're too young, you need to focus on doing your homework or whatever. Whereas that cool auntie is going to be like, oh, if you want to know how to talk to boys, you've come to the right place. Like, I know what I'm doing. I'll have them eating out of the palm of your hand. And it's not that they want you to go and talk to boys necessarily, but they know that saying like, oh, don't do that, isn't going to cut the mustard, because you are a teenager, you're going to do what you're going to do, and they can understand that because they've been through it and they can relate to it. And they might know, like, as an adult, there are more important things in life than talking to boys, but they can also acknowledge that what's important to a 15-year-old is not the same as what's important to a 30-year-old. But they were 15 once, and so they're like, I get it, I can't stop you, but if you're going to do it, let me tell you how to do it the right way. So she has your back. She gives you these life tips in a very non-judgmental, non-sugar-coated way. I feel like she delivers these blunt, unfiltered truths. And you don't have to take the gender literally, by the way. This could be like a cool uncle. This is more like an archetype. But yeah, at the same time, this person in this example, this cool auntie, she is fiercely protective of you. And especially with this you have rights card, I feel like your current self is angry by some of the ways that younger you was treated in the past, and some of the things younger you let people get away with. And I feel like if younger you started telling current you about a time where they were mistreated by someone, current you would be like, okay, what's this person's address? I just want to talk. So this tells me that there was a time maybe when younger you didn't stand up for yourself as much as you do now, and now sticking up for yourself comes more naturally to you, but I think it's a work in progress and it has taken a lot of practice. I honestly think current you is really, really supportive of younger you and essentially just has their back. And I also feel like current you could have a real kinship and a real affinity with the younger generations, because maybe you can vividly remember what it was like to be young and insecure and self-conscious about the wrong things. And so you're an empathetic voice, but you also tell it how it is. And I think you're greatly respected for that. Particularly if some of you have younger people in your life, like maybe if you have your own kids, or you are somebody's auntie or uncle, or you work with children or teenagers or something, I feel like you can really meet them where they're at because you're not so disconnected from what it was like to be in their position. But I feel like a part of you does want to reassure your younger self with the knowledge of like, you know, trust me, the things you care about so much now, I know those things are all consuming to you, but when you get to my age, when you have experienced some of the things that I have, you are not going to give a single shit about this stuff. I think current you definitely gets angry on younger you's behalf in relation to times when younger you wasn't able to stick up for themselves. I can imagine, you know, younger you telling current you a story about something that happened to them at work, like an older colleague patronising them or a customer being rude to them. And I can just imagine current you stepping in and being like, don't you dare let them speak to you like that. Don't let them get away with it. You don't have to put up with that. So I think current you is a lot more skilled at advocating for yourself than you were in the past. I definitely think younger you probably battled a number of confidence issues, and specifically hearing that younger you might have been afraid to take up space. So this could be in terms of your physical body, because I'm looking at this card here and it seems like this girl is scrunching herself up to be as small as possible. So this could be in relation to your self-image, your physical self, the way you look, the way you express yourself, choosing to wear certain things even. And maybe some of you have struggled feeling comfortable in your own skin, or over-analysing every aspect of your appearance or your style choices. Or this could be, on the other hand, second guessing yourself in terms of speaking out or in terms of going after certain opportunities. This could be you people pleasing, making your voice smaller because you were scared that what you might have to say might upset somebody else. This could be you in the past undermining your own needs and well-being to accommodate others, or just not fully standing up for yourself when you were being mistreated, letting it fly when you know that really you shouldn't have done that. If you have ever underplayed your beauty or intellect, or you've struggled with the idea of being seen and heard when interacting with the world around you, I feel like your current self wants to reassure younger you that you do start to come out of your shell, and some of the things that used to hold you back, you do not even think about those things anymore, like they're not even on your radar. I think current you is younger you's biggest fan and biggest hype man and biggest supporter, and they want to throw some compliments at younger you because they want younger you to realise their own potential and really step into their power. People could have actually been really very afraid of younger you's potential, and that could have led to a lot of resentment and jealousy. Maybe you found that when you were younger, people didn't really compliment you all that much, or people might have tried to nitpick certain aspects of your appearance or things about you generally, and I think a lot of this was due to jealousy. I'm seeing this image of you being a teenager and coming down the stairs looking super glamorous in this gorgeous dress, and I'm just getting that maybe your parents are like, you need to cover up a little bit. Like, they can't even give you one compliment. And current you is like, are you kidding? She looks amazing. Like, current you is wolf whistling and clapping and telling you that you look like a goddess. And your parents are like, you are drawing too much attention to yourself. You just need to like cover up your chest area. And maybe, you know, that makes you feel ashamed or embarrassed or humiliated. But current you is like, listen, she looks great. If she has a big chest, that's not her fault. Why should she have to cover up to make other people feel more comfortable? And it makes younger you feel a bit better and more comfortable with something that you should have never been made to feel bad about in the first place. Current you is telling younger you are literally beautiful and do not let anybody else ever tell you otherwise. But younger you could have internalized some of this as like, you know, there must be something wrong with me, and perhaps that led to a lot of self-consciousness. I'm hearing particularly in public spaces. So a lot of you could have struggled with social anxiety or with doing things on your own, like taking yourself out on dates, because maybe you've always been made to feel super hyper aware of what you're doing. But I feel like when current you and younger you meet up, it's just so clear that current you is feeling much more at ease with themselves. And even if they still struggle with some of this stuff, there's a natural, easy tranquility to their energy, and it's the kind of thing that can only come from living through these periods of anxiety and over time doing some of the things that in the past have scared them to the point where now it's not so scary anymore, and they don't even think of some of these things as like big things in the way they used to. Some of you could have struggled with body image issues and even something like eating in public in the past, and I don't know why I'm getting that. It doesn't have to be that example specifically for you. That might just be for one person, but I want to use this example for example's sake. So it could be like current you and younger you go out to eat, and younger you is overanalyzing the menu to figure out like what has the least calories or what's not going to be too messy to eat, because they don't want to feel like everyone's looking at them or laughing at them or judging them if they end up with sauce on their face. And meanwhile, current you is like, yeah, I'll have a bucket of the garlic barbecue wings and the mac and cheese, and I'll also have a big piece of chocolate cake. And younger you is like, aren't you worried about the calories? And current you is like, oh, honey, bless you, but no. Young you could be like, well, what if people think you're greedy? And current you is just like shrugging, like, so what if they do? And it's not about overconsumption or anything like that, but it is about you leaning into what you actually want and doing something for you, regardless of what anyone else around you is thinking. Because maybe this is a restaurant you only go to like once or twice a year, and you're like, I don't want to deny myself the opportunity to try a few different things. Maybe younger you would have felt the pressure to conform. Like if younger you went to a restaurant with their friends and everyone ordered salad, young you might be like, I'll have the salad too, even if they actually want the mac and cheese. But current you no longer denies yourself what you really want. And the food is just a metaphor. It doesn't have to be this literal example, but there's this overarching message of like, the current you no longer cares as much about fitting in with the status quo. I think there was a time when younger you just felt so incredibly out of place and so hyper aware that they were in some way different. And you might have tried harder to fit in when you were younger, but some of you, it's like you still ended up feeling as though you stuck out like a sore thumb, or you just didn't get how to merge with other people. And it's interesting because we have, you know, with this camouflage card here, I feel like your younger self will be shocked by how adept current you is at blending in, despite the fact that they're not caring and despite the fact they're doing what they want. And I think current you, it's like they do this in a way where they have become capable of adapting to certain environments when it benefits them to do so, whilst also honouring the part of them that is divinely unique to other people. And again, I think this is something where current you is saying like that just comes with practice, and they're saying like I can blend in when I need to because I've learned that I don't have to blend in to be unconditionally loved and worthy. And I know that might sound like a contradiction, but it feels as though like almost like this younger version of you, when you tried too hard to be someone you weren't, when you tried to put yourself into a box where you didn't really belong, it came across as noticeable because it was inauthentic, because maybe you were putting too much pressure on yourself to be this one certain way. But current you finds it easier to interact with the world or to socialize, and this comes more naturally because they've let go of the idea that they have to be perceived in this one certain way, and they're not blending in at the expense of this part of them that is different. They learn how to honour their differences by incorporating aspects of this uniqueness into their everyday conversations, because they're not as concerned with coming across a certain way. They're not putting as much pressure on themselves to be this person who everyone loves or everyone agrees with. And they also have this wisdom of like, You know, sometimes you've got to play the game in the corporate world and you have to do the silly little small talk thing because they know that now, they've done that now, they've had practice, and they don't feel so out of place in those situations. They know how to camouflage themselves when they need to, whilst also sticking up for themselves when they need to. So I feel like younger you could be observing current you in some kind of social interaction, and younger you is like, wow, you're so good at handling that now. It just seems to come naturally to you. Like, you're so charismatic, you're so charming, you know how to get on with people. And current you is like, well, yeah, I know how to navigate these things now when I need to. But they're kind of like winking at younger you and saying like, but don't worry, I'm still a weirdo deep down. So it's like they've never lost touch with this aspect of themselves that makes them unique, and they're very comfortable with that. They don't think it makes them lesser than, and they don't care as much about forcing themselves into a box. I'm also seeing an image of you and younger you in a salon, and like, if younger you got a haircut, even if you're not happy with it, you might have in the past been the kind of person to be like, oh my god, I love it, thank you so much. Because some of you were so concerned with hurting someone else's feelings that you undermined your own. You guys have always been very, very sensitive, and that is one of your strengths. But I think current you has learned how to navigate the world and people in a way that honours that sensitivity whilst also honouring themselves. So current you isn't like a Karen complaining over everything and being dramatic, but if they're not happy with their haircut, they are going to say like, hey, I think actually this colour would be better, or this cut would be better. And to current you, you've been doing this for so long it doesn't seem like a big deal to you anymore. But for younger you, it's monumental. Younger you is like, oh my god, I can't believe you just told them you weren't happy with the haircut. What if they think you're a bitch? And current you has enough confidence and is self-assured enough to say, you know, if politely asking for something from a service provider in a kind way makes me a bitch, then so be it. It doesn't have to be that example, but I think younger you is really impressed by how well you can speak up for yourself now, because that's something that maybe they haven't always been able to do. I also feel like current you is reminding younger you that your intuition has always been one of your strengths. And in the past, maybe you have doubted this, but your current self is saying you've always had that innate wisdom when it comes to a situation being off, so please do not doubt yourself. I feel like current you is saying that you lean into that more and you trust your own judgment better than you used to. Because maybe when you were younger, you could have ended up in situations that did feel off because you allowed people to convince you that you were overthinking it. So you didn't always go with your gut and you ended up worse off because you didn't listen to yourself. And I feel like current you is saying, yes, there's a lot we've learned over time, but you have always had that profound insight. And as we've gotten older, we have learned to rely on that more and more, and we've learned that it's there for a reason. So I actually think this is something you are both reminding each other of in a way. You're saying like, our intuition has never been wrong. And so if a situation isn't feeling right to you, I think this is encouraging you to follow that feeling and see where it leads, because actually your intuition has never led you astray. And I know that might be confusing for those of you who've struggled with anxiety. I'm not talking about your worries, your spiraling thoughts, your mind trying to jump in and convince you of something. I'm talking about that calm, peaceful, I know this is the truth feeling that our intuition brings to us. And I think you are both reminding each other like that has never been wrong. So younger you could even be saying to current you like, hey, I'm in a relationship with this person, but I feel like something isn't right, but my friends think I'm overthinking. What do you think? And current you is like, well, what do you think? And younger you says, I just don't know. And current you is like, no, you do know. And they just sip their tea and give young you the side eye, because they want young you to learn to trust themselves and practice leaning into their own innate wisdom, because that's something they've always been so gifted at and so tapped into, but maybe their mind or their anxiety or their people pleasing got in the way at times. But younger you could be like, so I'm not crazy for picking up on this kind of stuff and seeing these patterns. And current you is like, no, you're not crazy, and in fact you actually get better at it and you learn how to use it instead of feeling overwhelmed by it all the time. I also feel like current you is telling younger you that you are an excellent vibe checker and you are good at just knowing things and predicting things before they happen. I think it's clear to younger you that current you is somebody who has come out of their shell. They have come out of hiding, they've come out of this winter period, and they're no longer reducing themselves to being like the bare bones of a human being just to make themselves palatable to other people. I think current you is saying, you know, don't worry, you won't feel left out in the cold forever. So this could be about finding yourself or finding like-minded people, or not feeling like you are iced out or separated from the world around you. I think current you is saying like you will find that sense of belonging and peace, even if it's just peace within yourself. So that is what I'm getting for your oracle reading, pile 3. We are now going to move on to your tarot reading, where future you is stepping into the spotlight. So you and younger you are like, oh my gosh, future me, we have been waiting for you forever. What's going on? Fill us in. And your future self is here to spill the tea. They're going to let you guys know what you're getting up to in the future, what things are like for you, who you will become, and who you are currently becoming. Thank you so much for being here so far, and I'll see you at the tarot portion of your reading, pile 3. Hi, pile 3. Welcome back to the tarot portion of your reading. Without hesitation, let's get started and have a look at the cards that we pulled for you. I'm going to pop your little pink octopus to the side for now. But yeah, let's have a look at what we pulled for you. So this is all about what future you has to say. Okay, so starting out, we have the Page of Pentacles, opportunities. And the clarifier for the Page of Pentacles is the Queen of Swords. Don't worry if the cards aren't all in frame right now, by the way. I don't know what the camera looks like at this moment, but when I've laid them, I will check. So do not worry. We have the Page of Cups, happy news. And the clarifier for the Page of Cups is the Ten of Cups, fulfillment. Some really amazing cards so far. We have got the Wheel of Fortune reversed, destiny. And we have got the Two of Wands reversed, planning. We have got the Fool, innocence, and the clarifier for the Fool is the Seven of Cups, inspiration. We have got the Five of Swords, conflict, and the clarifier is the Seven of Wands, self-defense. I'm actually hearing the party don't start till I walk in, so maybe Kesha is significant for somebody. But I feel like when your future self steps into the room, it is just party time. All of you are really excited to see each other and talking, jumping up and down, high-pitched screaming, and you're all hyping each other up, you're all complimenting each other, you are so happy to see each other. Like, current you is saying, you look amazing, and future you is like, oh my god, no, but you. And also, what about her or him? Stunning, pointing to younger you, and it's just this really positive, beautiful, warm energy. I feel like you and your past and future selves all immediately want to start yapping with each other because you feel right at home with one another. Even if there's a big difference when it comes to your confidence levels, you still recognize each other as like one in the same. So you immediately get chatting. Even, you know, the younger version of you who might feel self-conscious in front of other people, it's like they feel safe coming out of their shell around current and future you. Like, they feel safer being more themselves. I'm just picturing future you going crazy about how good younger you looks in their outfit, and current you and future you are like, give us a twirl, act like you're on a catwalk, and younger you would normally be like, no, that's cringe, like that's embarrassing, I'm not doing that. But when the younger you is with current and future you, they might roll their eyes, but then they're like, okay then. But then they get really into it because they feel like it's okay for them to be feeling themselves sometimes. It's not self-indulgent to sometimes be like, I am loving how I look today, or I'm feeling this outfit, or whatever the case may be. It's not a bad thing to feel confident sometimes and to celebrate that. Younger you could have had a really hard time not only giving yourself compliments, but you could have also had a hard time when it comes to accepting compliments from others. Like, if you have ever had a past romantic interest who you've noticed staring at you and they're like, you're so pretty or you're so handsome, you could have been the type to just roll your eyes and be like, shut up, no I'm not, because you don't want the attention on you, or it just made you self-conscious to be aware of yourself like that and to know that other people were aware of you. But future you doesn't mind receiving compliments as well as throwing them around. Future you doesn't mind having eyes on them, and future you also doesn't mind talking about themselves. And I don't mean it in a way of being self-absorbed or not being interested in other people, but future you could be someone who uses their voice as a way to connect with people by telling relatable anecdotes or sharing funny things that have happened to them. Another example I'm getting is like, you know, if younger you always hated like interview situations and you were like, I don't know what to say about myself, I feel really cringy, you know, bigging myself up or like selling myself, I feel like future you would be much more skilled and comfortable when it comes to things like that because they've done it. They're like, you know, sometimes you just got to play the game, and they're like really smooth with it. I don't know, I just feel like when future you walks into the room, they are someone who's like, crazy story, guess what happened to me on the way here? And maybe the story is slightly embarrassing, but it sort of connects everyone and it has everyone in absolute stitches laughing. And you can tell that there's an honesty and a candor in terms of the way future you delivers a message, and it's really, really captivating to people. I feel like you guys have always had a very, very funny, like, internal narrator. But maybe, like, younger you has kept a lot of your, like, stream of consciousness to yourself because you thought, like, oh, nobody would even get what I'm thinking right now. Like, nobody would understand this mess of thoughts. But I feel like future you is more comfortable showing some of their thoughts like that. And actually, a lot of people can relate to it. And, you know, it's actually really funny. I think younger you and current you are enchanted by how well future you can tell a story or how effortlessly this flows. Because there could have been a time for younger you when they avoided sharing anything personal about them at all costs. Or if something crazy happened to them on the way to meet some friends, they'd be like, I am never telling anyone that this happened to me. Like, this is so embarrassing. But the future version of you is confident enough that they are happy to share these stories as a way of connecting with others and making people laugh. And it makes them so magnetic. It makes them so engaging. And I feel like the current and young versions of you are looking at this future version like, why was I ever worried about speaking out and sharing my voice when I do it so well? There's something about one of your strengths being your authenticity and also maybe how articulate you actually are. And in the past, this could have been something you were so frightened of exposing, was like your authenticity, because you just felt as though like nobody will relate to this, nobody will get this. But the future version of you knows that like if you have a story to tell, it's because somebody needs to hear it. You could even have your own platform in the future if you don't already. Like, you could definitely do even something like more creative, like something where you are truly using your words and your voice to connect with others. So for some of you, I think this is literally just about you having more confidence and that radiating off you. But for others of you, this could be about, you know, being brave enough to have that public platform or to put your thoughts or your ideas or your voice and your creations out there. I think hearing future you speak is a fantastic opportunity for the current and past versions of you, because you are like, wow, I'm actually really articulate. When did I get this articulate? And it's been there all along. It's just been about having the confidence to let it shine in this unfiltered and genuine way. Because some of you have spent a great deal of time filtering yourself and feeling like you have to constantly assess like what is appropriate to say or what is not appropriate to say. And obviously there are occasions where you have to be mindful about certain topics. This isn't saying that future you is going to be like mouthing off about politics in the staff room at work or anything like that. But I think future you definitely does feel safer not over-analysing absolutely every aspect of their self-expression to meet somebody else's needs. I think future you gives less of a shit, to be quite honest. I think they are a lot more candid, but it's not that they don't give a shit about other people or they are not sensitive to the needs of other people. You know, this isn't in an obnoxious way of like, I'm going to talk over you and I'm going to talk about topics you're not comfortable with to you, even if you told me not to, because that's my truth. It's not like that. Like I said, you're not Karen. It's just future you realizes that whilst it's important to be sensitive to others, it cannot come at the expense of shutting your own voice down. So future you is less fearful of their impact, but it's not in this way where they want to upset anybody or be controversial for the sake of it. It's more like them saying, I will stick up for myself and my beliefs if I need to. And also future you cares less about whether or not people will like them. Future you isn't craving acceptance in the same way that maybe a past version of you might have done. I feel like they've learned to actually lean into their quirks instead of fighting against them. Some of you could have grown up feeling a little bit like the outsider or feeling othered, or some of you unfortunately could have been surrounded by the wrong people who didn't nurture you feeling comfortable being that authentic version of you. Like, you could have had this amazing sense of humor, but it was like wasted on the wrong people because they just weren't on your wavelength. Like, maybe this young version of you tried to connect with people by telling a joke or telling a story, and it was met with people around giving you a kind of like mean girl attitude or being like, I don't get it. And so that led you to believe like, nobody will ever get me. But future you, they don't care if anyone gets them as long as they understand their own truth. And speaking their truth feels way better than hiding parts of themselves to fit in. But I also feel like it enables them to actually connect with other people on the same wavelength to them. I think future you has this thing about them where a lot of people find them really relatable. And it's such a stark contrast because maybe younger you felt like you couldn't relate to anyone or nobody tried to relate to you. But a lot of that, I think, is because you couldn't fully be yourself. Like, you could have experienced in the past a lot of people making assumptions about you because of how you presented yourself when you were in a group. Like, I don't know, it's making me think of people saying like, oh, well, you're like the quiet one, or you're the really like, not plain one, but like them basically getting you entirely wrong, and you're like, well, actually I have all these wild stories and this crazy funny sense of humor, but you wouldn't know that because I can't show it in this context. It's something like that. It doesn't have to be those specific examples, but future you, it's like they might say some of these out there things and add a little bit of their own signature spice to the stories they tell, but it has this factor to it where people are like, okay, like PAL 3 is really real for that. Like, that is super relatable. I think some of you, it's like the younger version of you was kind of ahead of their time in a way. You could talk about things that other people get embarrassed by in this really candid way, but it makes people like you even more and think that you're super funny and witty because they're like, you know, future PAL 3 just says what everyone is thinking, but some people don't have the guts to say. I don't know why I'm getting this example specifically, but I remember this being a thing when I was younger. I'm talking when I was a teenager. And again, this exact example does not have to resonate with you, and it probably won't, but I'm just using it as part of a story to describe your energy then versus your energy now or in the future. So when I was a teenager, male self-pleasure was very, very normalized, but female self-pleasure wasn't at all. And I feel like most of us, if not all of us growing up, engaged in some form of self-pleasure, but for some reason we pretended we didn't. The girls pretended they didn't, like we never admitted it, it just didn't get discussed. And it was seen as something weird or gross or disgusting because it was so heavily stigmatized. So I can imagine like younger you trying to be that authentic, candid person and, you know, maybe trying to have a conversation with your girlfriends and being super blunt about it, like, hey, does anyone else ever get the urge to rub themselves after reading Vampire Diaries fanfiction? Sorry, I don't know why it's that example. I told you this wouldn't resonate. And objectively though, like that's so real. Like, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people feel or felt that way, but maybe you were surrounded by the wrong group of girlfriends because they were like, ew, no, I don't do that. What are you talking about? We don't do that. Nobody does that. And maybe it made younger you be like, oh, I was just kidding. I don't really do that. And then in your head, you were thinking, I am never opening up or having a deeper conversation again. Whereas future you would be a lot more comfortable saying whatever they wanted to say like that and not caring what kind of reaction they get. And it doesn't have to be like that, but it could be something where like you're less afraid of like oversharing, because if you say something and people don't like it, you're kind of like, who cares? Like, this is me. So if someone said like, ew, no, I don't do that, future you will be like, okay, you're lost then, I'll do me and you can stay over there pretending that you don't flick your bean like the rest of us. And I feel like a lot of people find this version of you really, really endearing because they're like, that is a person who is not afraid to be themselves, and that is something to be admired, and you glow better when you're in that energy. And I think that's something current you and young you pick up on when they're looking at future you talk. They're like, this person just seems like they know themselves inside and out. Literally, they're self-assured, they're authentic, and they are just so at ease in their own skin. It's like the quirks that you once thought made you weird or made you stick out like a sore thumb. You lean into those quirks and people can see that those things look really, really good on you. And it doesn't just have to be with your behaviour and the way you talk. It could be the way you dress and like styles. You could have been doing something years ago that has only just come like back into fashion now, and you were like ahead of your time with it. So people thought it was weird when you did it back then. But now you're like, it's like you just do what you want. It's like future you says whatever they want to, and young you might be looking at future you through gritted teeth, like, oh no, we shouldn't have said that. But then they see that future you has everyone in their vicinity cracking up laughing, and that allows younger you to kind of relax and be like, phew, that went way better than expected. And they think, you know, maybe it's okay to be honest, maybe I don't have to hold myself back. Future you just seems like somebody who is really emotionally fulfilled. And I think one aspect of that is they're not overthinking absolutely everything. They don't have to be as careful. They feel more comfortable saying and doing things spontaneously and not playing every eventuality out in their mind. They're not always in this battle when it comes to like saying the right things. Future you isn't someone who second guesses themselves, and they're not somebody who can be swayed easily from the truth that they know in their heart is something that I'm hearing. Like if somebody gave you a latte when you ordered a cappuccino, younger you might be like, hey, I didn't order this latte, I ordered a cappuccino. And if the waiter says like, no, you ordered a latte, younger you could feel in their heart of hearts like, nah, that's not quite right, I'm sure I didn't. But they might relent and be like, oh, okay, well, it's fine, it's okay, I like lattes anyway. Whereas future you is quite firm in like, no, I ordered a cappuccino. They are more firm on what they know is the truth, and they're more firm when it comes to people testing their boundaries. They don't let people take advantage of them or tell them something is right when it's not. Future you, I think, has definitely learned to trust their intuition and to see their sensitivity as a strength. And I'm hearing like they can spot a liar from a mile away. So again, they have this excellent vibe checker and they can trust that if they sense something, they are probably not wrong. And I think this is even with super funny things too. Like if in the future you are a parent, it could be that future you catches your teenager sneaking out of the house wearing a big coat and they're like, "Where are you going?" And the teenager says, "I'm just going to a friend's." And future you says, "Really? What have you got on under that coat?" And the teenager is trying to tell them, "It's nothing, it's nothing." But future you is like, "You are not fooling me. Like, I wrote the playbook on sneaking out of the house, so come on, let's see it." And the teenager is like gutted that they've been rumbled, but future you just knows what they know. Like, they can't explain how they know it, but they just know it. They can see right through these things, and they've learned not to doubt themselves when it comes to those snippets of insight. Future you could actually use this foresight and this gift of identifying patterns and being kind of psychic more to their advantage. They could even be in some kind of business that involves that. It's like they use it to navigate the world around them and to identify the best opportunities for themselves. So this could be in terms of like predicting patterns before they happen. I don't know, I feel like younger you maybe had an idea that they gave up on because when they told people about it, people were like, "Oh, I don't get it," or "I don't really see that kicking off. I don't really see that getting popular." But then what do you know it, the thing that they talked about years ago suddenly becomes popular. And now they're like, "I wish I would have gone with that at the time." So maybe like they have learned to take advantage of that intuition now or in the future. And that's great for them because instead of relying on what other people think or doing what is popular at that time or trying to squeeze themselves into this niche or this box of doing what everybody else is doing, they're good at being like, "Nah, I'm just going to go with what I think and do what works best for me." And it really does pay off for them. I also feel like future you wants to remind current and younger you that there's a world of possibilities open to them if they are willing to be more open-minded. And as they're saying that, they're wanting me to acknowledge that it's not that any version of you wasn't open-minded, but I feel like maybe a past version of you has set limits on what you are personally capable of. And future you is telling you, you do not need to put limits on that. They're saying if it's possible for them, it's possible for you too. But they're also saying like you don't have to resign yourself to one particular route. I think future you is absolutely amazing at giving you pep talks because I'm seeing them almost dressed as like a boot camp leader and sort of shouting at you, but it's all positive things. It's like when you, like young you or current you, doubt yourself, future you is saying, "Listen to me, we do not do that. Don't you dare undersell us like that." A future you is actually a little bit scary, but very, very motivating and inspiring. And I feel like you guys have always had this sort of rebellious spirit, but maybe certain, I won't say institutions you were part of growing up made you feel like it was wrong to challenge people or to challenge certain systems that you didn't agree with. You could have been part of organizations or communities that sort of tried to knock that spirit out of you. And I think future you is saying, don't worry, because in the future you realize that you never had to shut that side of you down. In fact, something you do now, it's like you use that intellectual curiosity and that ability to rise to a challenge or have a debate or question things. You use that as a strength in the future. And I'm hearing your future self saying, "We're not afraid to get into a little bit of trouble." And I feel like they're saying it with this mischievous smirk on their face. Your future you is very, very mischievous. And I think younger you is almost afraid of smiling back. They're reluctant because maybe they've been told they have to play by the rules in some way, but future you's desire to break free from expectations and constraints is just so contagious. And I think they're saying to younger you and current you, like, don't be afraid to get in trouble with me. And all of you are like teaming up as this iconic trio. So I feel like future you is saying they're not afraid of a little conflict, they're not afraid of getting into a debate or kind of stirring the pot when they need to. Like, if they don't agree with something, they are going to say it. And I think younger you, and maybe to a degree even current you, is like, so we just say what we actually think and we don't get punished for that. And future you is laughing like, who is going to punish us? We're free to do what we want. I also feel like future you is almost, I want to say, the little devil on current you's shoulder, but it's in the best way possible. I'm actually picturing the Eminem and Dr. Dre song Guilty Conscience, where one is acting as the angel and the other one is acting as the devil. But let's just say current you is in a situation where someone is being rude to you. It's like younger you's voice might pop in, kind of making you feel bad for wanting to react to that or wanting to stick up for yourself. And they could just be saying like, "Come on, let it go. Like, maybe this person is having a bad day." Meanwhile, future you is saying, "No, fuck that. Let's go scorched earth on this motherfucker. Tell them to meet me outside." And current you is like, "No, I'm not saying that." And future you is like, "Well, if you're not going to say that, at least say something to stick up for yourself because I'm not having them talk to you like that." And so it kind of coaxes this assertiveness out of current you. And when it comes to younger you, Future you kind of has to handle that more with kid gloves because maybe younger you is nervous and stuttering at the prospect of asserting themselves. But it's like once they take that first step, current you and future you is clapping for them like, oh my god, you did it. And it wasn't that bad, was it? And so over time, this is how younger you becomes current you and future you, because you get more comfortable doing that to the point where it just comes a lot more naturally. I think current you could be struggling with making a big decision right now. You'll know if that's for you. But I feel like if future you has any piece of advice to give to you, it's to let you know that you don't have to fear change, because wherever you end up, you are going to land on your feet and you are going to be extremely fulfilled as long as you are truly following your heart on this. I think current you could be asking for some kind of direction when it comes to which path to take. And I think future you isn't wanting to give you a direct answer on this because they're saying that you need to trust yourself. Like, that is the whole point here. I'm seeing future you sort of throwing their hands up in the air and saying like, why are you asking me? And current you is like, well, I'm confused, I don't know the answer. And future you is putting their hand up and cutting you off and saying, don't give me that because you do know the answer. Future you is saying like, you're coming to me instead of listening to yourself, and you don't need to be doing that. You don't need me to answer this for you because you can trust your intuition. And maybe current you is saying, can't you just tell me what the safest option is going to be? Like, I need to know the outcome. And future you is saying, I can't tell you that. All I can tell you is it's not about what the safest option is. It's about following your intuition. And if I were to give you the answers straight up, I will be taking that away from you. And the only way you're going to become who you're meant to be is by trusting yourself in this moment. Again, it's going back to what we said in the beginning, like, you actually have to live through this in order to inherit this wisdom that your future self has in abundance. They can tell you that if you listen to your intuition, you are going to be incredibly happy, but they're not prepared to tell you exactly how this is going to go down because they don't want to deny you the opportunity to develop that self-trust. So that is what I'm getting for your tarot reading, pile 3. We are just going to finish off with a little bit of closing guidance. So this is advice that your future self wants to leave you with. It is also meant to be representative of their overarching energy in this future. So let's have a look at what we've pulled for you. Okay, pile 3. So we have got number 10, let the leaves go. I can let go of what I no longer need. And we have got divine inspiration. I am open to divine inspiration and it flows through me effortlessly. Yeah, so I mean, stating the obvious here, but your future self is encouraging you to let go of what you no longer need. So I think in this context, if there's a young version of you out there who always felt like they needed to ask for permission to make decisions, I think future you is encouraging you to honor your own divinity by not looking outside of yourself for answers. They are saying the innate wisdom that has always been within you is very much there, and to develop it further, you need to first and foremost start by trusting yourself and your own decision-making capability. I keep hearing you don't need to ask. So I think this is about letting go of always feeling like you have to check with other people whether it's okay to do or say something. You have to honor your truth and trust that this unfiltered version of you has important messages to deliver, and that it doesn't matter if it's not everyone's cup of tea. It doesn't matter if not everyone understands it initially. That's part of the process of detaching from the opinions of others. And it does involve sometimes feeling rejected or feeling like nobody is understanding you. Sometimes you need to go through that experience to realize, it doesn't actually matter if nobody else gets it, as long as I understand why I'm doing this and as long as I see the vision. And of course, I don't think your future self is saying like it's not okay to ask for advice when you're going through a hard time and when you need to make certain big decisions in your life. Like, that's okay. But I think future self is saying like you don't need to prioritize other people's visions for you over your own vision for yourself. It's okay to ask for feedback, but it's not okay to be like, I'm just going to do what somebody else said I should do because they know what's better for me than I do. Even if deep down I know that it's not what I want to do. There's a difference between seeking out support from people who give you encouragement to follow your dreams and allowing people to live their own dreams vicariously through you by encouraging you to do something different than what you are truly being called to do. Because there is this message of like, you do know the answers. You are allowed to let things go if they are no longer serving you. You are allowed to go down a different path if it's not what you want anymore, because some things maybe you've outgrown. And it's safe to not rely on these things so much and to instead rely on your own profound sense of intuition, because that has always been one of your greatest gifts. And I think that only strengthens in your future, pile 3. So that is what I'm getting for your reading today, pile 3. I really, really hope you enjoyed this reading. If you did like reading, please like the video, please comment, let me know what resonated, or just let me know which pile you picked if you don't feel comfortable. Let me know what resonated. Consider subbing if you haven't done so already. That is the best and easiest way to support me and this channel. With all of that said, I really appreciate you listening today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, and I will see you in the next one, Pile 3. Hi, Pile 4. If you chose Pile 4 and if you chose the Three Trees Tarot with this purple octopus, you are in the correct place. Welcome to your reading, friends. If you would like a full breakdown regarding what this reading will entail today, please check out my introduction. I go through absolutely everything there. I will also leave some details in the pinned comment below for your reference. If you want to take a quick glance at that, go right ahead so you know what to expect. However, we are going to be starting off by looking at your oracle cards as an energy check. So this will be a conversation mostly between your current self and younger self. And then we're going to move on to the tarot portion where your future self will be joining us and adding their much needed input. So this reading is basically, if you, your younger self, and your future self all got the chance to sit down and catch up, what would you talk about? What would you discuss? What would you want to know? And what would you want to tell each other if you did get that opportunity? So this is a reading that will hopefully give you the chance to reflect, but also we're going to be touching on future possibilities. So hopefully you're going to be coming away feeling uplifted. So usual disclaimer, this is a collective reading and not everything will resonate. Please take what's for you and leave the rest for somebody else. With all of that said, and without any further hesitation, let's get started with your reading today. So we are going to be unveiling these oracle cards and looking at the overarching energy between your younger self and your current self. So starting off on the left over here, we have got Wise Walrus, Intensity, Attentiveness, Ferocity, Gleaming Tusks like silver moons, show me strength through gentle means. We have got Look for the signs and synchronicities with 11:11 on the clock there. We have got Contentment. We have got It's Not a Big Deal. We have got number 31, Look, Lime. And we have got number 41, Sundress, Do It For You. So I always like to start the readings by mentioning the numbers on the cards. These could be relevant in terms of a date, a month, a year, or an amount of days, months, or years. This could be an age or an age gap, or something significant astrologically, like a particular house, for example. This could be a life path, or it could be an angel number or synchronicity you are seeing a lot of. Now, these do not have to apply for this to be your pile. These are just extra confirmations for specific people. So we have got the number 31 and number 41 showing up here. Some of you, your current self could be between the ages of 31 and 41. We also do have this synchronicity card that has 11:11 on the clock, so that could be a sign you're seeing a lot of. We have a total actually of 6 wands on these cards, if we also include these two. So wands are featuring very heavily here. The number 13 could also be relevant if we add all of these numbers together. Somebody could be born on the 1st, the 11th, the 13th, 14th, or the 31st of a month. The numbers 4 and 5 generally might also be relevant, so maybe the 4th or 5th of a month. Somebody could be born in April or May. First house or Aries energy could be significant. 4th house or Cancer energy, or 5th house and Leo energy might be relevant here. The first thing I want to say to you, powerful, particularly as I'm looking at this card with 11:11 on it, is that you have a really, really active spirit team, and I feel like they are trying to connect with you by showing you signs and synchronicities at this time. So it would not surprise me at all if current you is seeing a lot of angel numbers in your day-to-day life, and perhaps I want to say like weird coincidences. I feel like you guys are very deeply connected to your guides or to your spirit team, and I feel as though you have one particular guide who really, really has your back and who is looking out for you at this time. And it could even have something to do with your future self, and maybe that's why it's coming through in this reading. For your pile, for some reason, I feel like your future self could be of a different dimension. The future self that we are connecting with today, it feels like this is an entity who has perhaps completed their time on Earth and is watching over you and protecting you from like this higher plane of existence, because your future self has this kind of omniscience about them of like they see everything, they know everything, and they're also very, very peaceful. And I'm not saying like a human person on this earth cannot be peaceful. I mean, it's difficult, but I'm not saying it couldn't happen. And your future self could very well be like indicating here that you will spend the rest of your time as a human creating peace and harmony within yourself and within your environment. But I don't know, there's something about this energy that almost feels otherworldly, or like it's transcending the humanness of all of this, and it's like it's just not of this earth. There's just a knowingness about it that I don't think a human could necessarily reach. So this could be like your future self is looking down upon current you and younger you and guiding you and advocating for you from this different plane of existence or from the heavens or whatever you personally believe in. And if it's not that, like if you don't identify with that kind of thing, if you don't believe in that kind of thing, I do feel like your future self is coming from a place of being either very old or very wise, or like they have lived a lot of life and they know what's important versus what's not important, is what I want to say. And it's also like they're looking down upon you and younger you and almost taking on this proud paternal archetype, but it's like a grandparent vibe, and they're sort of saying like, oh, look at my beautiful babies, I'm so happy they've got a chance to meet for coffee together, they're so wonderful, I wish they could see it how I see it. And they're just so happy for current you and younger you to be having this time together. But it's like they're in some way partially removed from this situation. And again, it's like they're watching you from above. And it's not that they're shut out. They like watching from above. It's where they want to be. They've made peace with that. They're happy to be there and watch as this guide. And they're content getting to see you just living your life. It's almost like, you know, if a grandma took her daughter and her grandchild to the fairground or something, it's like that grandma might say, you know, I've had my time going on roller coasters. It's not for me anymore, but I'm happy to watch my daughter and my grandchild go on this roller coaster. And that grandma gets genuine delight from seeing these younger people laugh and scream and have the best time. Like maybe she's taking pictures from the side and she's like, oh, they're just having so much fun. And that means the absolute world to her to get to see that. Those are the vibes that I'm getting with this. Obviously, don't take that literally, but someone here is saying like, I've had my time and now it's my time to guide you and to help you with the knowledge that I have. And if you do identify with that idea of your future self being on this different plane of existence, it could be that they have also teamed up with other people who love you in that realm and other people who are looking out for you. And maybe that's why these signs and these synchronicities are so strong, because you have this team who are really, really dedicated to you. So that could apply if you have somebody who you have lost in this life, whether it be an ancestor, a friend, a relative, a pet even. It could be that that energy is still watching over you from this other realm and your future self has met them there and now they get to like team up and take care of you from afar. And that might just be a message for one person listening to this pile, but it is honestly really, really heartwarming. It could be that these guides send seemingly random blessings your way just to make your day go a little bit easier, especially with that luck card. And it could just be things you think in your day-to-day life are coincidences. Like maybe your weather app says it's going to rain all day and you're kind of like, oh, that's annoying, I have to go to work and I wish it wasn't raining on my journey. But then as soon as you get out of the door, the rain stops and the sun comes out and you're like, oh, that's weird, like that's actually so lucky. But I think this is your guides and especially your future self bringing this to you to make your time here easier. This is random, but current you could have recently found some kind of object or been gifted some kind of object and you feel it's like a lucky charm, particularly if there's an object you have inherited from a relative, someone who has passed on or something like that. One example I'm getting is maybe if you have recently had to clear out a relative's house after them passing, it could be you found something at the very back of their wardrobe that you were just drawn to inexplicably. And I think it's like maybe this relative or person who had passed and your future self, it's like they put it there to get you to see it and to get you to pick it up. And that's their way of connecting with you or something, because they've channeled this lucky energy into it and they want you to use this object as a reminder that you deserve blessings and as a reminder that they are with you along your journey. And my intention for this part of the reading was for it to be more about current you and younger you, and I will get onto that, don't worry. But when a message is coming through this strongly, I do have to mention it because I feel like it is relevant for someone. And especially like if any of you guys have experienced a loss that's been hitting you recently, I think your future self just keeps saying look out for the signs. And I'm also hearing something about envelopes. They could be saying they want you to feel enveloped in the love or something along those lines, because I keep getting this message of like something will happen and current you is like, that was lucky, but actually this is your guides and your future self looking out for you at a time when maybe you are feeling kind of alone or you're feeling stressed out. And if you do identify with going through that kind of hard time in your current life and you're feeling like, you know, nobody is on my side or nobody is looking out for me, they want to let you know that they are and they're listening. Like even for some of you, let's say you have lost someone important to you and you have to attend their funeral. I know a lot of people say, particularly in relation to grief, like people tend to say they just want to get the funeral out of the way so they can actually process their grief. So it could be that during a hard time, this person you've lost along with your future self, they are helping you. So in this example, maybe the funeral director is like, listen, I know you wanted to get it out of the way, but we don't have anything available until XYZ day. I'm really sorry. But then you get a call and there's been a cancellation and they can squeeze you in sooner. I mean, I don't know why somebody would cancel a funeral, but just go with me, like, just for the sake of the example. And obviously you're not going to feel like that's a lucky break, because nobody would. If you're going through this huge loss, you're not going to be like, oh yay, we can do the funeral sooner. But it does make an incredibly difficult time flow a little bit more smoothly here. And that's what they're trying to do for current you. And it doesn't have to be just with like you grieving or going through that physical loss. It could be any stressful period you're going through. Your future self might be saying, you know, I can't take the feeling away from you, but I can help you by sending these little signs that I'm with you. So it doesn't have to be the funeral example or anything as dramatic as that. I know very well that when we are going through a stressful time, any minor inconvenience, to be honest, has the potential to like tip us over the edge. So another example could be like, you know, let's say you've just had a terrible week at work, you've been stressed at your job's a joke, you're broke, your love life's DOA. Maybe friends are significant to this pile, I don't know. But yeah, if you're having a week like that, maybe you are feeling like, well, everything is crap, but the one thing keeping me going is knowing that I get to go and have my hair done or my nails done at the salon tonight, or something like that. But then your nail girl rings while you're on the bus, like, I'm so sorry, I'm sick, I'm going to have to cancel. And you're just about ready to like flip. You're like, is somebody out to get me or what? Because things cannot get any worse. And then you're so distracted by this phone call that you miss your stop. So you got to get off at the next stop. But when you get off at the next stop, you happen to get dropped off right in front of this salon that you have never ever seen before in your life. And so you go in and you're like, this is a long shot, but I don't suppose you have any appointments. And they're like, actually, we just had a cancellation, sit yourself down. And you're like, thank you, I was about to end it all, but you are my saviour. And obviously, you know, it doesn't change anything else about the situation you're in. You might still hate that job or be having like a hard time, but it makes this otherwise bad time that little bit easier. And this is your future self, I think, kind of acting as your guardian angel. And it could very well be the case that you have this team of guardian angels sort of fighting your corner and trying to send you blessings as and when they can. And again, it's just these weird little coincidental things of like, oh, that was lucky. But it's not just luck, it's this divine guidance. Even, you know, some of you, if you have lost someone and you're not necessarily having a stressful time, but you've had something positive to celebrate, but at the same time, it's made you a little bit sad because you're like, I wish this person was here with me to see this. Like for some of you, if you are getting married or you're graduating or something good is happening to you and you're happy, but you're like, you know, I wish my mom or dad or grandma or granddad was here to see this. It's like maybe your graduation ends up falling on your relative's birthday or something crazy like that, or that's the date your wedding planner suggests. And it's just them saying, I am here to see this. I know that's kind of random. It doesn't have to be those specific examples, but it feels like there's something to do with like serendipitous occurrences or divine timing and these lucky breaks. So that was a message that somebody needed to hear in relation to this future you. They're stepping in prematurely. But I also feel like this look refers to your current self reminding your younger self to be grateful or to feel fortunate for what they have. And I feel like your current self is saying this because something has made them figure out what's actually important. I keep getting this message of there are more important things, and that's from your current self as well as your future self. And I think that younger you might struggle to fully enjoy the moment at times because they're always considering like what's the next step. So I think for some of you, younger you might be this perpetual overachiever who maybe doesn't always take the time to celebrate their wins because they are constantly trying to move on to the next thing. They're always sort of reaching for this sense of satisfaction that is always just a tiny bit out of reach. I think younger you is very driven by their goals and they are probably very ambitious. They have high expectations for themselves, and I think they might struggle to stay in one place. They could also be very restless physically, mentally, or both. And I think this could be someone who tells themselves, like, once I do this, I'll be content. But perhaps they have this loose grasp on that feeling of contentment. And no matter what they do or achieve, it always kind of manages to find a way to slip through their fingers. It seems like younger you is someone who is always searching for the next destination, and they might struggle to fully appreciate the one they're currently in. And so I think current you is trying to remind you that contentment is to be found along the journey and not just at the end of it. And I think future you is also stepping in to say a similar thing. I'm also hearing, what if right now is all there is? And they don't mean this in a way that's trying to scare you, but I think this is current you and future you encouraging younger you to learn how to find joy in even the mundane moments in your life, but especially they are encouraging you to make a bigger deal of the big moments and learn to celebrate yourself along the way instead of resigning to yourself to this idea of like, oh, I'll celebrate my wins at the end, or I'll celebrate when I feel successful. It won't be this exact example for you guys, so please take this more metaphorically, but the energy of this is almost reminding me of like, do you know when you're a kid and you are fortunate enough to get to go on like a school trip to some famous monument, or your family takes you on holiday to see some beautiful historical locations? I feel like sometimes when you're a kid, you can't fully appreciate that because you don't realize the enormity of it. So your parents could take you to see the Eiffel Tower and you're just like, yeah, it's okay. Can I go on my iPad now? Or like your family take you to see a gorgeous sunset and they all seem to be just basking in it and really enjoying it. But you're a little kid with a short attention span. So maybe you're kind of like, this is boring. What are we doing next? It's the sort of like, are we there yet vibe. And sometimes it's only as you get older and you A, start paying for trips yourself, and B, your brain starts maturing, that you're like, I did not appreciate that experience as a kid. Like now I'd do anything to go and visit the Eiffel Tower or spend an hour just looking at a sunset. It's kind of like your current self and future self, as the adults in this scenario, are saying appreciate what you've got now because one day you are going to see how important it really is. And that could apply if current you has gone through any difficulties with mobility or health or anything like that. This could be you saying make sure you enjoy your physical body to the fullest, or make sure that you appreciate the people in your life while you have them, because that's what's important. It could be current you reminding younger you, like, go out on runs, go hiking up a mountain, wear the sundress, because there might be a day where you can't go out and about as easily, and the time to enjoy these things is right now. You don't have to put it off for a later time because you feel like you don't have time for it, or you feel like you need to achieve something first. I'm hearing the phrase specifically, there's plenty of time to be tied to a desk. So this could be like if you've been over prioritizing work or overextending yourself and it feels like you've been chained to this work or this project, or just someone or something that's been taking a lot of your attention. I feel like this is a message to get out into nature and to feel the wind in your hair and make sure that you are also prioritizing the things that just bring you joy. And these can be things completely unrelated to a milestone or achievement. You could struggle to do things that aren't related to that. I'm hearing like it's okay to sometimes just do things because you like doing them and not because it relates to some kind of measure of success. And I feel like, one example of this could be something like putting on makeup. It doesn't have to be this one for you. I'm just trying to explain in a tangible way what I mean. So like makeup, for instance, I am personally someone who has always loved experimenting with makeup for the artistry and for the fun of it. Now, I do not tend to wear makeup day to day, but occasionally when I have a day free, I might just like to play around and go to town with a full glam look for no reason other than the fact I find it fun, even if I'm just like sitting in the house. Now, could I ever be an MUA? No. Am I skilled at this even as a non-MUA? No. I think probably the average girl on the street could do a better job than me in terms of applying makeup, but that's not the point of it. I do it because it's a fun way of expressing myself creatively. And basically the point in me saying this is because I think your future self is trying to tell current and younger you this message. It's like you don't have to be amazing at something for it to be just fun. You don't have to monetize every skill that you have. Sometimes you should just do the thing because it's what you want to do, because it's fun. And I think the makeup example is particularly interesting because as a society, we cycle through a lot of different makeup trends, and a lot of criticism when it comes to makeup application is in relation to it not following the trend of that given moment. So sometimes you might see comments that are like, well, your eyebrows are very 2014, we don't do our eyebrows like that anymore. And if the person doing their makeup is aiming for a 2025 makeup look, then of course that criticism might very well be valid. But my point is, not everyone is doing that, and you don't have to do that. Like, maybe the person doing their eyebrows isn't aiming for clean girl, maybe they're aiming for a Victorian goth fairy queen. I don't know. And that's not saying that there's anything wrong with wanting the clean girl aesthetic. If that's what you want, that's fine. But I think there's a message here of like, do whatever you want. You don't have to fit like a certain aesthetic. You don't have to do your makeup with this intention of like, oh, if I just get my eyebrows right this time, I'll achieve this certain look that has everyone's approval. Sometimes you can just do your makeup freely, the way you want to do it for you, and that's fine. Do it because you enjoy it, because it's there for you to enjoy, not for everybody else to enjoy. And obviously, like I say, this is not just about makeup, this is more of a metaphor, but I think it's probably a good metaphor in a way because makeup can be performative, and I think current you is reminding younger you like you don't have to perform for anyone. I think current you has definitely worked on developing their confidence, and maybe it's starting to feel more comfortable in their own skin. And so I feel like they're saying to younger you, Whatever you do, make sure you're doing it for you, because that is the way you're going to continue to find happiness and find contentment. I also feel like current you wants to remind younger you that they're starting to feel more content and more settled with where they are at in life. And maybe they have stopped performing in some way. They're actually learning more about what they like as a person rather than just trying to be palatable to the world around them. I'm thinking specifically of maybe acts to do with performative femininity or performative masculinity, whatever you identify with. I think current you is telling younger you are really coming into your own. Like, they're saying we are still figuring out what we like, but every day we discover something new about ourselves. And in that process, we are able to enjoy life more. We're able to feel the contentment in just doing things that are genuinely just for us. I also feel like current you has learned to let go of a lot too. Like, they're saying to younger you, the things you once found such a huge deal, those things really don't bother you anymore. I think the things that used to stress younger you out, it's like current you is saying, you have started to let go of those things, and you realize that those things you used to think were major or were make or break just aren't important to you in the grand scheme of things. You're saying like it's not a big deal. It's literally not a big deal. So that is what I'm getting for your oracle reading, pal 4. We are now going to be moving on to your tarot reading, where future you is stepping into the spotlight more. We've met them a little bit already, but let's see what else they have to say. So you and younger you are like, oh my gosh, future me, we have been waiting for you forever. What's going on? Fill us in. And your future self is here to spill the tea. And yeah, we have touched on future you quite a bit, and I think some of you needed to hear that, but we are going to continue with that. So future you wants to tell you what you're getting up to in the future, what things are like for you, who you will become, and who you are currently becoming. Thank you so much for listening so far, and I'll see you at the tarot portion at Pal 4. Hi Pal 4 Collective, welcome back to the tarot portion of your reading. Without hesitation, let's get started and have a look at the cards we pulled for you. I'm going to pop your little octopus to one side. Don't worry if not all of the cards are in frame, by the way. I will lay the cards and then I will check whether or not they're in frame. Okay, but to start off with, we have got the 5 of Cups, and the clarifier is the 8 of Swords. We have got the Emperor, and the clarifier is the Empress reversed. We have got the Tower, and the clarifier is the King of Wands reversed. We have got the Knight of Swords, and the clarifier is the 9 of Cups. We have got the Queen of Pentacles, and the clarifier is the 9 of Wands. Okay, so I can definitely see why we were getting a lot of messages from your future self throughout the oracle. And I think it's because your current self really needs the reassurance right now that you're on the right track, or that you're going to start seeing improvement soon. What your future self does want to tell you first and foremost is that you have done the hard part here. I keep hearing that you've done the hard part and you're so close to success and achieving something you want here. And they are saying you have experienced some setbacks along the way, and maybe you haven't been holding out hope for something happening here. But they've seen that even though you've been drained, you've still been like kind of giving it that last push, and they are so proud of you for that. And they're saying it's in hand. So again, there's something like you can't really do any more than what you've been doing. And when they are saying it's all in hand, I feel like that's in relation to some kind of divine timing here. But basically what they're saying is like, you can't force this, you can't make it go any faster. And they're also advising that you look back to a time in your past when this pattern was somehow repeated. So maybe this is about learning from your mistakes via your younger self. Maybe that's what your younger self can teach you, because it feels here like your future self is saying you are pushing for something to happen really hard, but you might kind of be wearing yourself out in the process of this. And I feel like they're telling you, you know, you will find contentment, but maybe not by these particular means. So if you're saying, for example, you know, I will feel happy when XYZ happens, like when I meet this particular goal, or when I have the relationship of my dreams, or when I have this snatched physique, like I think your future self is saying you don't find contentment through these external things, you find it within. And they're also saying that you stumble across contentment throughout this ongoing process of discovering who you are. But they are telling me that you've done a lot of this work already, like you've been doing it. But one thing about you, Pal 4, you are a fighter, like you are determined, you're ferocious when it comes to going after what you want. And I think younger you has always been this way, and it's something that current you hasn't lost. And I think future you is saying you never will lose this quality, even in that future. But I think they're also saying, like, maybe just be mindful of implementing this ability in the right way and in the ways that actually benefit you rather than in ways that are maybe depleting you of your energy. Because some of you get so hyper fixated on doing things in one particular way that you end up burning yourself out, and in the end you get the thing you thought you wanted and you discover, like, oh, this actually isn't what I want. Now I want something else. And you throw yourself into that, and then the process starts again. So I think future you is encouraging current you to connect with younger you and maybe think about a time. I'm hearing when you put all your eggs in one basket and then you realize you're actually allergic to eggs. I have no idea where that came from, but I think future you is saying, like, dig deep and think about when you were younger and, you know, the last time you had this dream of, like, I will finally feel content when I get XYZ. And then ask yourself, like, did you feel the contentment you thought you would in that moment? And if the answer is like, no, I finally got all the eggs and then I realized that I hated eggs. Or if the answer is even like, yes, but it was fleeting and I wolfed all the eggs down and didn't even feel like I got to enjoy them, they didn't really satisfy me, then I think this is your future self saying that maybe something you are pushing so hard for is similar to that, in the way that, like, you kind of think it's going to solve all your problems and it won't. But they're saying, like, that doesn't mean that you're not capable of solving your own problems. It just means you might have to consider other ways of satiating yourself. Like, just because you're hungry and you have an appetite, it doesn't mean that you have to eat eggs. You can eat whatever you want. That is what your future self is saying. But you don't have to push so hard for it. You don't have to wait for the chicken to lay the egg when you could just go to the supermarket and buy a pineapple instead. I don't know why a pineapple. Maybe somebody's eating pineapple. But basically what I'm saying is it doesn't have to be this one certain way, and it doesn't have to be this way that you once thought it had to go. Your future self is saying that you are on the precipice of something big, and you've already been making some huge changes here. I'm hearing living on a prayer, so I don't know if that's relevant for someone, but particularly I'm hearing the lyrics, we're halfway there, so I think this is your future self commending you for allowing yourself to have some of the realizations that you've already had. For some of you, it's like your current selves are asking for clarity and for reassurance because you're not sure if it was supposed to happen like this. And I think your future self wants you to know, first and foremost, they want you to know that you're safe, because some of you could be in the throes of some kind of chaos and feeling like, you know, this wasn't the plan, this is like thrown everything up in the air. Because maybe there has been some kind of drastic change that you've had to make, or a change that's been made for you, and it feels like it's just thrown everything into chaos and now you're not really sure where you're meant to land. But your future self is saying, like, this is part of the process and it's how you're going to become who you're meant to be, because this is going to help you genuinely figure out what is important to you and what you want from life. Because some of you, it's like you've had this awakening, you've been jolted awake by something, and maybe you do feel like it's left you out in the cold, or it's left you not understanding your place in the world. Because the things you once found meaning in are no longer meaning that much to you, and maybe you're kind of feeling like, where do we go from here? But your future self is trying to tell you that you will look back on this journey as some kind of crucial part of your trajectory to contentment and to feeling that sense of fulfillment. And if you're in the midst of the chaos right now, I understand that it's not easy to see things in that way, but your future self is telling you that you are going to rebuild from this. And also, if you are grieving something or somebody, you are absolutely not going to feel that way forever. I think your future self is trying to advise you that if you are feeling stuck in this very moment, it might be because you are trapping your own feelings inside of you and pushing ahead without allowing yourself the time to grieve, or without giving yourself time to reassess whether something you are doing is actually something that you want deep down. And these specific scenarios are going to be different for each individual watching, and I think it does depend on what kind of situation this is. But this Emperor upright and the Empress reversed energy is making me think like there's maybe an imbalance between the masculine and feminine energy here. And this has nothing to do with your gender identity, but your future self is reminding you to honor your feminine energy and also to value that energy so that you can come back into balance with yourself. And when we talk about an out of balance masculine or feminine, if you are a woman listening, I'm not saying like, oh, you're super manly, you act really aggressive like a man. It's not that. It's not even about like human descriptors or stereotypes of what it means to be a man or a woman. I guess you could interpret this as like Mars versus Venus energy as just one example. But like if you are too heavily leaning on one and not honoring the other, doesn't matter which one it is, but it can become a problem, and the ways that might show up in your life, those are going to be different depending on your personal circumstance. But as one example, if you are leaning too heavily into that Mars energy, this could look like the aggressive pursuit of something at the expense of everything else. It's like going to war, fighting to the death over something, but in the end, you're not achieving anything, you're not saving your country, you're just destroying everything around you. So maybe you defeat your opponent and you win, but at what cost if you have nothing left at the end of it? So this could look like pushing for a certain goal, forcing things to be a certain way and refusing to look at any other option, being really rigid with things and feeling like you always have to be doing something, you always have to be taking action. So this is very much indicative of that overachiever, never being settled with where I am energy that we talked about in the beginning. And if you do identify yourself in any of that, I feel like your future self is saying it's so important that you don't shut down that Venusian energy or dismiss it as not being important, because these energies being in balance are going to lead you towards feeling more of that contentment, actually getting to enjoy it. And I think if we even go back to what we said in the oracle, I think this is a reminder of like, you don't always have to be doing something. You don't always 24/7 have to be pushing towards your goals. Sometimes you can enjoy things just because they are fun and relaxing and beautiful and because they bring you joy. Sometimes you can do things just because you want to and not because you're hoping to achieve anything from it. Your future self could be reminding you like, it's okay to feel your feelings, because some of you, it's like you're holding your emotions hostage because you're not letting them go. There's been nowhere to release them, nowhere to put them down safely. And some of you, it's like you feel as though you don't have time to do this. Even if you're grieving a certain situation, there's still a part of you that's kind of like, I've got to just keep pushing on this other thing. I've got to stay focused on the task at hand. And I think your future self is here to remind you, you do not deserve to be punished for having feelings. And now they're asking, so why are you punishing yourself? Some of you feel trapped by this shame or this guilt. And it's like you think the only way to move past that is to keep yourself busy and focus on other things. Some of you guys could have fidget toys, because I'm hearing something about specifically like constantly moving your hands or keeping your hands busy and active, but it could just be your body or mind generally. A lot of you could struggle to be alone with your own thoughts, like you always need something to occupy your hands or your mind because you really struggle to sit with these feelings. But your future self is saying like the only way you can move is through it. You can't get around it, you can't go over it, you have to go through it. But they're also reminding you like you have absolutely nothing to feel guilty or ashamed for. Some of you are disappointed in yourself that you're not as far along as you could be, or you haven't achieved a certain thing that you told yourself you would, and you're feeling so pressured to just hold the weight of everything and keep on keeping on. And in the process of that, maybe you've silenced this part of yourself that wants to be acknowledged. But your future self is also asking, like, who is this for? Because I think they're saying where they are, there is no use for guilt. And so they're asking, why are you persecuting yourself? Like, it's not for us because we don't accept that currency here. And I think they're talking about this spirit team or spirit realm or something. And I also kind of hear them laughing and being like, a lot of humans do a lot of things that might warrant human feelings of guilt, and yet they feel nothing. But you beat yourself up over like snoozing your alarm. And they're asking, and to what end? And for some of you, it's like there's always this need to be bettering yourself or to be productive. And I think your future self is saying like, sometimes it's okay to just have the lie in and to snooze your alarm and not feel bad about that. And your future self and whichever spirit team is looking after you, they want you to know that they do not share any of this disappointment that you have had at times towards yourself. They're not looking at you like, oh my god, this lazy piece of shit stayed in bed and ordered pizza again instead of drinking a kale smoothie. If you are always thinking that you should be doing more and that you'd be honouring someone by doing more, I think your future self is reminding you that there's more to being a human than just the grind, than just working yourself to the bone. Like, you are also here just to enjoy this human body without the need to always be improving or always reaching for a higher qualification. Sometimes you can find contentment just in the small things and in doing what you love. So, things like sleeping in, having pizza from time to time, playing games, dressing up, feeling the air on your face, running, not just to burn calories, but to run just for the sake of running, having an orgasm. Like, your future self is saying at the end of all this, there is only love. So enjoy showing your own self and your own body love by doing these things just because you can and just because you want to. So your future self is saying that yes, you will find contentment, but it's not necessarily by these rigid means. I don't know, like as one example, this specific one won't apply to you, but let's say you lost someone close to you, like let's say you lost your grandma, and maybe when your grandma was alive, she said to you like, oh, like in my day, women weren't allowed to work or to get an education, but if I were your age now, I'd have loved to go and do fashion design or something like that. Just as one example, you don't have to take this one. So it could be like you go and do fashion design because you really want to honour your grandma. But maybe you discover, I am not actually interested at all in fashion design and I don't want a career in this. Or maybe even if you do like the course, you're working 2 jobs just to be able to fund it and you're saying no to any other opportunity that could be fun and exciting for you because you're like, I'd feel so guilty if I said yes to doing what I want and messed up this opportunity. Like my grandma would be so disappointed in me if I gave up with this. And I feel like your grandma is looking at your future self, like, who, me? And your future self is like, hold on, wait up, like, don't project your shit onto grandma like that. She never said any of that. Because your grandma in this hypothetical scenario is like, I never wanted you to feel like you had to do fashion design. So if you are beating yourself up on my behalf, please don't. They're saying like all they ever wanted was for you to be happy. All they feel for you is love. And they're also saying like they had their time on earth and they want you to have yours the way you truly want to, the way you truly enjoy. So your future self is stepping in and saying like, powerful, your grandma is here and she's saying she isn't checking on you from this higher plane of existence just to see you being boring and miserable in a job you hate and feeling like a martyr. She wants to see you having fun, living life the way you want to. She wants to see you eat the pizza and do stupid things with your friends. I was going to say having orgasms, but I don't think grandma wants to watch that. But basically, the bigger message of this is to like relinquish this guilt that you have been keeping hold of, because it is not a currency that they accept on this higher plane. So if you think you're doing it for them, you're not. Your future self is saying it's okay to indulge in things sometimes and that life doesn't have to be a constant punishment. If you're thinking, you know, if I put myself through hell now so that some higher power out there notices and I can eventually get into heaven, your future self is saying that's not how it works. Like, you don't have to do all of that. You're worthy of unconditional love regardless of your perceived productivity or regardless of reaching these certain milestones. I think your future self is basically saying like, live your life to the fullest because that is where you are going to find contentment. Don't put off experiencing joy for a later date. Like, this moment is what you have right now and it's okay to do whatever you want with that moment. I keep hearing that you're not gaining more brownie points by keeping yourself miserable because it's what you think you should do. And they're saying it's okay to jump into a new opportunity and to go against the grain. I think future you is very unafraid to redirect when they want to do something differently, and this might be something your current self is still learning at this time, especially if they've been focused on this one particular thing and they're realizing that it is not making them happy. And going back to that card we got in your oracle reading about doing things for you, I feel like it's sometimes so hard to decipher what we are doing for ourselves authentically versus what we are doing performatively for other people. And sometimes we feel trapped within that because, especially living in a time where we have access to so much information at the click of a button, it does often feel like we can't do right for doing wrong. And so we're perpetually trapped in this hamster wheel of thinking what we should be doing or feeling bad about something we shouldn't be doing. And sometimes we make our mind up and we're like, right, I'm going to do things this one way because I've been told the other way is bad. And then someone will come in with like, well, actually, I'm going to tell you 1,000 reasons why what you're doing now is wrong and why you should go back to the other way. And sometimes it's really hard to know how to proceed. And I think your future self is reminding you it's okay to come to your own conclusions on that, and it's okay to trust what genuinely feels right in your soul, rather than other people dictating what you should or shouldn't do. And this makes me think of the example of like how women are shamed for absolutely everything, like no matter what they do, they can't do the right thing. And by the way, I'm sure this isn't exclusive to women, but I cannot talk about men's experiences because I'm not a man. I am a woman who has experienced some of this stuff firsthand, so those tend to be the kinds of examples I give on this channel. I don't mean them to be in any way exclusionary. I'm sure all genders experience this in different ways, but I'm thinking of it particularly in relation to parenthood. Like, women will be told they are selfish for having kids by some people, whilst simultaneously being told they're selfish for not having kids by others. They'll be told going back to work after having a baby is selfish because they are abandoning their child. Meanwhile, they're also told by other people it's selfish to be a stay-at-home parent because they're not contributing financially. It's a double-edged sword and you really can't win. Like, no matter what you do, there's going to be someone out there who's not happy with it, is what I'm trying to say. And so I feel like your future self is telling you just do what aligns with you. Like, take other people's opinions and feelings and personal baggage with a grain of salt. Take those out of the equation and just process your own first and foremost, because that's already an overwhelming enough task without having to consider absolutely everybody else's input in this equation. I feel like your future self is someone who is not afraid to honour themselves by doing what they truly want. Your future self is not afraid to be different, and that's where they find the most contentment and peace. I think your future self is trying to tell your current self that you are going to feel the most satisfied when you are living in a way that aligns authentically with who you are at this soul level. And I think your future self is saying that one day you're going to turn around and be like, how did I get here? Like, how did I get to this place of achieving my dreams and feeling like my wishes are so fulfilled? And I feel like the answer is, it's because you start making the necessary changes to accommodate your own dreams rather than other people's. And that is going to make you feel so much more confident, because your self-esteem is always going to be highest when you know that you are living authentically, when you know that you are providing everything you need for yourself out of genuine want rather than what other people want for you. They're saying that you do not have to internalize and accept other people's versions of success as yours. A fulfilled life of success is whatever you want it to be. It's whatever you make it. And it's okay if that success for you looks different than it does for other people, because that's a part of the process. They're encouraging you to not be scared of making these changes. And at times it might feel like these are drastic changes, but they are asking you to trust it because it's going to lead to so many rewards. And the rewards are not just material, they are emotional. You are going to feel so much happier. You're going to feel like, this is everything I want. I'm not yearning for something. I'm not pining after something in the distant future, something external to me. Like, it's here, it's now, like this is the happiness. And when you're able to tap into that energy, the material success actually flows a lot more readily, because you have that balance of Mars and Venus, that masculine and feminine. You can get stuff done, but you can do it in a way that suits you and it's not leaving you depleted in the process. I think your future self wants to tell you that you will become very, very wealthy, but there's this focus on wealth in the emotional realm, not just the material realm. And I do think that it's both, but definitely that emotional aspect is going to feel extra significant for you, because that has always been something that's like a little bit out of reach, no matter how much success you achieve externally or materially. And it's like, you are going to have it all is something that I'm getting. So that is what I'm getting for your tarot reading, pile 4. We are just going to finish this portion of the reading off with some extra confirmation cards from your future self. So these are intended to represent the overarching energy of your future self, and it's just intended to leave you with a little bit of closing advice, like what they need you to know most right now to help you on this journey. Okay, pile 4. So we have got number 15. Oh, my voice is heard in the world. And we have got mystical journey. I am on a mystical journey, and each step brings me closer to my true self. This mystical journey card is implying that although you might not fully understand it right now, whatever is happening is bringing you in closer alignment to this authentic version of yourself. And I do think you are getting the signs, but maybe you can't currently make much sense of them. Maybe they're a bit jumbled up. And the thing is, I don't think you're meant to make full sense of this yet. I don't think you're supposed to, because I think this is teaching you to just sort of go with it, even when you don't have all the answers, even when it doesn't seem like there's a straightforward path. It's like you will find your footing and you'll know, this is solid, this is the right place when you get there, but you don't have to focus so much on that destination when it should be more about the journey. And I also feel like your future self is, again, solidifying that you don't always need to be doing things for other people's benefit. Your voice is just as important as theirs. Your opinions are just as important as theirs. You do not have to follow the pack leader. You are allowed to be a lone wolf and to rely on your own intuition and what feels best to you. I also feel like your future self is saying, like, just go ahead and howl at the moon if you want to. Sometimes we just need to let go. We just need to shout. We just need to let it all out, because it's just fun to let loose and to make a noise. They want you to do things just because it feels good to do them and just because you can. That's an important part of being a human, and it's an important aspect of this journey and a part of you discovering more about what you truly and authentically like and enjoy. So that is what I'm getting for you, pile 4. I really, really hope you enjoyed this reading today. If you did enjoy the reading, please like the video. Please leave me a little comment. Let me know what resonated if you get a chance. Or just let me know which pile you picked if you don't feel comfortable letting me know what resonated. Please consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. That is the best and easiest way to support me and support this channel. With all of that said, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, and I will see you in the next one, pile 4. Hi, pile 5. If you chose pile 5 and you chose the queer tarot with the rainbow octopus, you are in the correct place. Welcome to your reading, friends. If you would like a full breakdown regarding what this reading will entail, please check out my introduction. I go through absolutely everything there. I will also leave some details in the pinned comment for your reference. If you want to take a quick glance at that, go right ahead so you know what to expect. However, we are going to be starting off by looking at your oracle cards as an energy check. So this will be mostly a conversation between your current self and your younger self. Then we're going to move on to the tarot, where your future self will be joining us and adding their much needed input. So this reading is basically if you, your younger self, and your future self got the chance to sit down and catch up, what would that be like? What would you discuss? What would you want to know? What would you guys share with each other? What would you tell each other if you got that opportunity? So this is a reading that will hopefully give you the chance to reflect, but we're also going to be touching on future possibilities. So hopefully you're also going to come away feeling uplifted. So usual disclaimer, this is a collective reading and not everything will resonate. Please take what's for you and leave the rest for somebody else. With all of that said, and without any further hesitation, let's get started with your reading today. So we are going to be unveiling these oracle cards and looking at the overarching energy between your younger self and your current self. So starting on the left over here, we have Cautious Crab, Defense, Sensitivity, Self-Sufficiency, Child of the Great Mother Ocean, Encompass my soul with your sturdy shell. We have got Celebrate Yourself, You Deserve It. We've got Mindfulness. We've got I'm Not Okay. We have got number 37, Healing, Geranium. And we have got number 32, Escapist, Come Home to Yourself. So I always like to start the readings by mentioning the numbers on the cards. These could be relevant in terms of a date, a month, a year, or an amount of days, months, or years. This could be an age or an age gap, or something significant astrologically, like a particular house, for example. This could be a life path, this could be an angel number or synchronicity you are seeing a lot of, and none of these have to apply for this to be your pile. It's just an extra confirmation if these things do resonate. So somebody here could be between the ages of 32 and 37. The individual numbers 3, 7, and 2 could be significant. Somebody could be born on the 2nd, 3rd, or 7th of a month. February, March, or July could be relevant for somebody. If we add the numbers together, 3 plus 7 is 10 and 3 plus 2 is 5. So these could also be relevant dates, months, astrological houses, etc. Somebody here could have strong Cancer placements with us getting this Cautious Crab card, and with you choosing the Queer Tarot and the Rainbow Octopus, and with us getting that Healing card particularly, I definitely think that for some of you, your current self might want to express something about acceptance of self, and there might be a heavy focus on schmexual identity. Now, when I say schmexual identity, this doesn't necessarily have to relate to orientation directly. Some of you, it could very well be, and this healing journey could be in relation to like your current self coming to terms with their identity and potentially their own queerness. So this is definitely a message for any of my LGBTQ plus babies who ever felt growing up like, what is wrong with me? Because maybe you guys weren't given a safe space to come to terms with, let alone express certain aspects of your schmexual identity and where you might fall on the queer spectrum, if that applies. But that is not the case for everyone. You do not have to identify as queer. You could identify as completely straight, and it could still be the case where your current self is saying they've had to come to terms with something in relation to expression of schmexuality or healing one's relationship to their body or reclaiming their schmexual power. I'm sorry that I keep having to say it like that. I'm just trying to get around YouTube rules. So of course, as always, there are lots of different ways this can manifest, and I want to give a few examples that are coming through to me right now. But for many of you, I think there's this overarching message that regardless of whether you are straight or queer or asexual or whatever, there was some kind of shame and guilt attached to an expression of schmexual identity, and it feels like your current self is saying they have done a lot of work to detach from that, and this healing has been a long journey, but they do want to celebrate how far they've come. And I do think a lot of this shame stems from what they were brought up to believe growing up about things like schmex, pleasure, love, relationships, bodies, but also maybe less so for some of you, but it is still coming through. Something very not okay happened to you that at the time that it happened, you might have been forced to block it out or shut it down. And it was maybe something that you didn't have the resources to fully process at the time that it happened. So I feel like this could have been something that occurred when you were very young or not experienced enough to really realize the extent of what happened. And I keep wanting to say, instead of me saying you, like younger you, I keep talking as if like I am current you, and I keep wanting to say they, like this happened to them. So it feels like this thing of like detachment where you are seeing it from this outside lens, and maybe that's a way that you found to cope with this. But it's like current you is saying that this could have been something that happened when you were very young or not experienced enough to really realize the extent of what has happened. Or you were repeatedly instilled with certain beliefs from an early age, and it was difficult to detach from these beliefs and not feel this sense of shame. And I'm sure without me being incredibly explicit about it, you can come to your own conclusions about the kinds of things I might mean, and it will be different for each individual. I think for some of you, this might be smaller things that are built up over time, like maybe you were brought up to believe a certain thing that was continually reinforced throughout your childhood, and you accepted that as truth and buried the shame. And so even when you discovered that that truth didn't have to be your truth, it was harder at that point to switch and not feel that shame. Like it wasn't this overnight thing. It was never going to be. And for others of you, you can pinpoint some of this trauma to a specific event that happened that at the time was kind of normalized or sort of glossed over, or you didn't understand the full impact of it. But now your current self is like, we have realized that wasn't okay. Like what happened was not right, and we should have never been exposed to that. And so for a lot of you, I think current you is actually talking to you as a child or teenager or very young adult. And I know that might sound less specific than the ages I have mentioned for other piles, but for your pile, I don't think that younger you is a set in stone age. I just think younger you is at an age where their brain maybe isn't fully developed, and current you can see that something that they went through was normalized, or something they were led to believe was very, very wrong. And so that is going to be different for different people, of course. We know that children and teenagers can be taken advantage of by parental figures or adults in their life who should know better. But young adults can also be taken advantage of by predatory people. So I think it's important to acknowledge that, especially to those of you who are like, well, you know, technically I was an adult too, like I was 18, so I should have known better. Like, you've got to be less harsh on yourself here, because me at my big old age of 32, it's so clear to me that 18-year-olds are just babies. And I'm not saying that to be patronizing to anyone who is 18 or in their early 20s even. I know some people do have to grow up fast, and a streetwise 21-year-old might technically have more tough life experience than a sheltered 26-year-old, as one example. But as someone who has been at that age and thought that I knew everything, as you get older, you will quickly realize that there is a lot more to learn, and we are always learning no matter our age. Like, somebody who is 54 probably thinks the same about me at 32. But yeah, for some of you, I honestly think it's both, and maybe current you is talking to different iterations of younger you, particularly if this was an incident that was like a repeated pattern and you were re-traumatized at points due to this. But I said I would give some examples, and I definitely think for those of you who do identify as being on the queer spectrum, this could look like some form of healing from compulsory heterosexuality, maybe deeply buried denial over an orientation due to an imposed belief and a lack of acceptance from maybe a parental figure. Maybe even in some instances, something like conversion therapy was an aspect of this, and I am so sorry if that was ever the case. But when I say deep denial and the shame attached to that, it doesn't have to be on the end of the spectrum of like, I am a gay man who forced myself to sleep with and marry a woman, hating every moment of it because I wasn't safe to come out as gay. For some of you, maybe that has been the case, and if it is, that is extremely valid. But it's also valid for those of you who have recently discovered, like, hey, I'm actually bi, but I felt like growing up I wasn't able to explore that and come to terms with that. And so even though I'm in a monogamous relationship with the opposite sex right now, I'm happy to come to terms with and accept my queerness and my place in the world in terms of where I might fall on this spectrum. Like, both of those things are valid. For some of you, it could be a feeling of shame over asexuality or demisexuality. Maybe you grew up feeling ashamed of that, or feeling like, you know, I just don't experience what everyone else experiences. I don't experience attraction in the same way to other people, and thinking that there's something wrong with you due to that. Maybe this is a celebration of you knowing that there's nothing wrong with the way you are and coming to terms with that aspect of your identity. And for those of you where this isn't in relation to orientation, maybe this is your current self, you know, healing from things like religious indoctrination, internalized shame about your body and your pleasure and desire due to lies imposed by purity culture. Maybe you were made to feel responsible for other people's lust due to your body being hyper-sexualized from an early age. Maybe this healing is in response to a time where you can recognize that your autonomy was taken away from you in some way, a time when you were not able to fully consent or make an informed decision. Maybe this is reflecting on times that you once thought were just a normal part of relationships, but you have realized that actually some of those situations that you witnessed weren't okay. Maybe you did feel pressured or coerced, and you're reflecting on the impact of that. This could be in relation to things like SA or grooming, but for a lot of you, I feel like this is something that you once thought was okay or thought was a normal part of growing up, even if deep down a part of you understood on an instinctual level that it wasn't. But maybe at the time it wasn't possible for you to process that, and so it was easier to just shut down. And I am actually thinking, and this might just be for someone specific, but I'm thinking of peer-on-peer ABUSE. Sometimes those situations can be really difficult to process because the power imbalance might be less obvious. Like if something happens to us at the hands of an adult, when we are an adult ourselves, it's sometimes easier to identify and see how wrong that was. But when we look back at stories from our childhood that involve similar aged peers, it's easier to make ourselves complicit. Like if you sneak off with a group of friends or an older cousin and something happens, or you're exposed to something you're not supposed to be exposed to, you might still feel that sense of guilt and shame because you know it wasn't supposed to happen, but maybe a part of younger you is like, well, I'm going to get blamed because I wanted to sneak off with them. I wanted to act mature, like that was my choice. And the fact is, that's not true. So you might look back at that and think, we did that and I always felt weird about it, but I was part of it and I blame myself. But the thing is, I think current you understands that you're allowed to be a stupid kid and get up to stupid kid stuff without having to be forced to grow up before you're ready. Like, even if you did sneak off when you weren't supposed to, it doesn't mean you consented to whatever else happened to you that shouldn't have happened. And for some of you, it might not be that something happened to you directly. For a lot of you, it will be. Like, I'm talking SA, and also there could be shame wrapped up in, I'm thinking of gender politics and SA. Like, if you are a man and this happened, that's an added layer of unpacking this idea of oh, men are just supposed to enjoy it because all men are obsessed with schmex. There's an added layer of stigma that current you is maybe unpacking when it comes to that. But for others of you, it could have just been something that you were privy to, something you were exposed to, something you were either shown in real life or on the internet before your brain could fully comprehend it. It could be something you witnessed in terms of relationships surrounding you growing up. You could have been made to feel like being surrounded by constant fights or conflicts or emotional manipulation or being parentified. Somebody might have tried to convince you that all of that was normal, and it feels like current you is saying to younger you it wasn't normal and it's not okay. It's not okay that you had to see that, and it's okay to admit that it fucked you up a little. And again, for some of you, we are talking a more major trauma, and for others of you, these might be a series of more minor things. I mean, no trauma is minor, but whatever it is, it's still valid to process the impact it might have had. So I think you are looking back at something like, that was really fucked up. And it could even be, when you have opened up to someone about certain childhood experiences or things you got up to when you were younger. And I don't think you do that very often, Pal 5, because I think one big impact this has had on you is that you do not trust easily and you are cautious about who you open up to. But if you have ever told anyone about this stuff, it's like you'll try and make light of it, or you'll make a joke about it, or you say something in a passing conversation like, oh, my dad set my mum's hair on fire in front of me when I was growing up, or oh, when I was 16, I got in a relationship with my 30-year-old ex-teacher, and you're laughing at it and everyone around you is like, okay, but that's actually really fucked up. But I think some of these things for you were just normalized. Maybe you did kind of feel victim blamed for something that happened to you, or you felt like there was nobody to step in and tell you that what was going on was wrong. And so younger you carried around a lot of guilt and self-blame for ending up in those situations. But I think current you has come to this place of being like, there were a million so-called responsible people around me that could have stepped in to help and they didn't. So I did not let myself down. The system around me let me down. Pal 5, you definitely have a tendency to find humor in the dark moments. And I think in many ways that can be a great way to reclaim your power. But I think for a long time, you've been sort of blasé about this and almost had your fingers in your ears, because to anyone external, this is messed up, but to you, it was maybe just another Saturday. And this could be in terms of family dynamics as one example, maybe when an outsider meets your family and they are like, are things like this all the time? And you've been like, what do you mean? Because it's so normalized, but over the years, you've learned to shut off that noise. And I think one thing that younger you might struggle with is truly being present and also admitting when you're not okay or admitting when something is not okay. Because we have this escapist card, which makes me think like younger you had to detach from what was going on around them as a way of keeping themselves safe. Maybe home wasn't a safe place, or they did not have a safe sanctuary in their real world, and so they had to create one in their mind. And I do want to stress that I think, Pal 5, you have a really big imagination, and there is nothing wrong with processing difficult times via creative outlets. There's nothing wrong with using, things like visualization techniques. But I do think for some of you, this inability to be present now could be a result of this escapism influenced by some kind of trauma growing up. So we could be talking about things like maladaptive daydreaming, procrastination due to indulging in fantasy over reality. This could look like avoidant behavior when it comes to relationships or to conflict, things like ghosting or running away when things start to feel too real. And none of this, by the way, none of this at all is meant to elicit shame, because you've experienced more than enough shame, undeserved shame, and so this isn't to make you feel bad, and quite honestly, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. But I think for a lot of you, if you have ever beat yourself up about this and said like, why am I like this? Why can't I just have relationships like everyone else or go after the thing I want like everyone else without self-sabotaging? I think this is just an acknowledgement from your current self saying like, listen, some messed up things happen to us, and it's okay to admit that those things were messed up. And a part of our healing is allowing ourselves the space to acknowledge that and to process that and not trying to gloss over it. Because for a lot of you, I don't think escaping as a coping mechanism is something that you even consciously adopted. I think it's just something that happened as your way of surviving when you didn't know any different. But maybe you started finding that it was impacting your adult life, but it's like you were forcing yourself to just be okay and just get on with things. Maybe even for some of you, it's like you wanted to minimize this past trauma, or you said to yourself, like, everyone goes through shit, I should be over it by now, I should be able to do XYZ like everyone else. But it's like you were holding all of this baggage and you weren't giving yourself space to put it down. And maybe it was being compounded because every time something came up that perhaps pushed you into fight, flight, or freeze mode, it was this re-traumatization process because it brought up feelings from the past that you couldn't quite articulate. And so again, you blamed yourself for that. There was maybe a lot of frustration over this ability to not just be okay. And so the baggage then gets bigger, there's nowhere to put it down. Meanwhile, you're expected to also hold your work laptop and your grocery shop and your prescription. And these things might be easy to carry for somebody who only has to hold these things, but you're already being crushed by the crippling weight of something else from your past. And then you're blaming yourself for it. You're like, every other adult can carry their groceries in their work bag, why can't I? Whilst holding on to this enormous load. And you were not being fair to you. And I think the place you're at now, you know that and you have been working on it. There might be a way to go, but I think you have made so much progress. In your adult life, you could have found that it's been really challenging to snap out of things like maladaptive daydreaming. You could actually struggle with feeling like you're always zoned out or feeling detached from reality. Maybe things like dissociation. Even I'm getting derealization or depersonalization. Some of you could have been diagnosed with things that help give a name to some of the issues you've experienced, and maybe that's been helping you come to terms with whatever you did experience in your past. This could even be something like complex traumatic stress, CPTSD. For some of you, there could also be a lot of trauma tied up in the context of maybe being neurodivergent growing up, but perhaps not being diagnosed. And I think more than anything, current you has been finding ways to heal that part of you that felt like, why can't I just? I keep hearing that, why can't I just? And the sentence is going to finish differently depending on your individual scenario. But some examples I'm actually getting are like, why can't I just be normal? Or why can't I just do things like they can? Or why can't I just get out of my own head or get out of my own way and stop self-sabotaging? And I think, none of these things are being used as excuses, but it's just you're finding explanations of like, hey, I was operating in a whole different realm to everyone around me, and it wasn't fair of younger me to compare myself to these other people. I think definitely younger you, and maybe also current you, is still working on learning how to trust people. I think you are somebody who still operates with caution, but you are learning, and I think you're learning to celebrate the small wins. I think current you is actually really, really proud when they're able to reflect on how far you have come. I think current you knows just how difficult it has been. And I think current you has started to become more open and admit to themselves when they are not okay. Because maybe a younger version of you, because you were stuck in this fight, flight, or freeze mode potentially, maybe you were very hyper vigilant when it came to like not rocking the boat or not trying to be a problem for people. Maybe you never complained about things, you just accepted things happening to you and around you as like, this is okay, because ultimately by that point, I think it's almost this sense of like, oh, I've been through worse. So you shrug things off. You were like, this is fine while the house is on fire. I'm thinking of that meme with the dogs. And we have a dog on this card too. And it looks like a puppy. And I think this is saying like current you knows they had to honour that inner child by first and foremost acknowledging that things that happened to them were not okay. But also, it's okay to not feel okay about moments of injustice that happen and are happening in adult life too. I think current you is learning that they can speak out when they're not happy with how they're being treated, and they're realising it's okay to not bottle everything up and convince themselves that things are fine when they aren't. I do feel like your current self wants to tell your younger self that their sensitivity and their imagination is such a huge gift. And some of you guys, Power 5, I feel like you're probably individuals who have been underestimated in some way. And potentially, if you have used escapism as one of your coping mechanisms, for example, I feel like you definitely at some point in your life have been labelled like ditzy or in your own little world, particularly if you're a woman, because misogyny. You know, women can't have an elaborate, intense inner world and narrative. We are just ditzy. We're just girls. But I feel like the current you is taking your power back and saying like, I wasn't fucking ditzy, I was fucking hurting. And I honour that and I use it to fuel my emotions and my creativity. That is fucking profound. Because do you know how insanely powerful it is to have invented an inner world so rich and so intricate that you have the ability to oscillate between that and the 3D world when you need a retreat? It is a skill to be able to shut off from the real world like that. But I think this is just saying it shouldn't be the only tool in your toolbox. It shouldn't be the only thing you rely on, and it shouldn't come at the expense of honouring your real reactions to real events. And I think your current self knows this, and they're saying like they are finding a way for both worlds to remain more in balance. They're saying to younger you, you know, we don't visit our world as much as we used to because we don't need to, because we've also found a way to hold our power in the 3D. But occasionally we do go to that world and we water the plants and we look after the animals and we check in on our friends. We give back to it because that world gave to us during the time when we needed it most. I think your current self is somebody who has become very independent and very self-sufficient, and sometimes they might be cautious when it comes to who to trust, who to let in, for valid reason. And that is something they are working on, but they are a lot more mindful now. They understand more about why they do the things they do, and they're a lot more conscious when it comes to not using things as a crutch or just as a form of escapism. I'm even getting the example of like hypersexuality as a form of like dopamine seeking behaviour, whereas younger you might have done things and then be ashamed and ask themselves like, why do I seek this out? Current you understands why that was the case, and they give themselves more grace, but they are also more deliberate with their actions in terms of ensuring that they are doing what they're doing for reasons that they actually align with and can get behind. It's even the same for things like mindful eating, mindful exercise, whatever the case may be for your individual situation. I think current you has come a long way in terms of not putting so much blame on yourself for your instinctual reactions to very real traumas. But now current you is proud that they're able to operate more from a mindful place rather than a survival place. I think they're saying to younger you, like, they're so proud of how far they've come and how much progress they've made, and they want to celebrate their wins. And they're saying they're doing that more and more because in the past, younger you could have put yourself down for like not being as far along as you think you should have been. And you could have been comparing your journey to somebody else's and feeling like, you know, I don't deserve to celebrate this win because this is just a normal adult thing. There's no reason to pat myself on the back for this. But the thing is, that is so unfair to younger you to compare your journey to other people's. And this is not to say like, oh, Pal 5, you had it so hard and nobody had it as hard as you. This is not to coddle you. That's not what this is, because ultimately, like, we all have our own shit. But as one example, you know, passing your driving test is a big thing that a lot of people would celebrate. But I also think even having the courage to do your first driving lesson can and should be a big celebration for some people. And if you're like, well, it's not really a big deal, like everyone does that, it's not like you're anywhere near passing your test yet. Yeah, maybe for some people it's not a big deal. But for somebody who has witnessed someone close to them involved in a horrific car crash and has been scared to step foot behind the wheel ever since, getting the courage to do that first lesson is a huge fucking deal and something worthy of being proud of. Same as somebody who has struggled with social anxiety their whole life, getting the courage to send out their first job application. That is a huge deal. You know, same for people who spent a lifetime repressing their true identity due to judgment and shame, going to their first Pride event. That is a big celebration. Maybe it's their first time being openly okay, sharing who they are. It might not be a big thing for you, but it is to them. And that's why I can't stand when people are like, I don't understand why we need pride. Why does your sexuality matter? Why are you proud of being gay? It's not an achievement. Why don't we have a straight pride month? It very much gives the same energy as why don't we have a white history month? Like, I'm sorry, but it is 2025 and we have so many resources at our disposal, so don't be a turd. Because you and I both know that nobody is saying that being queer or being non-white is an achievement in and of itself. We are saying that existing as such in a world that has historically oppressed, condemned, silenced, punished, and done way, way, way worse to marginalised communities. And those marginalised communities not only still being here, but also being able to say, like, this is who I am and I am okay with that. That is commendable and that is something to be celebrated. That's fucking brave. It's far, far greater than somebody saying praise me because I'm gay. And people would know that if they pulled their head out of their ass for 2 seconds, but people love to deliberately misunderstand. And all of this is to say, like, you are allowed to celebrate your wins, no matter how small they might seem to other people. And especially if any of you guys have struggled with that concept of not feeling like you're as far along as you should be, and you dread social interactions, and that question of like, so what are you up to these days? Triggers you because you feel like you should be doing something far larger. I just want you to know that if these people had any idea about some of the stuff you've gone through and come out of, I think they would be in absolute awe of you. But for some reason at social events, it's not considered polite to delve deep into your childhood trauma and the things that have held you back and what's taken you so much strength to process. I just want to say, if I was at a social event with you, Pal 5, we could discuss all of that. Like we can trauma dump to each other. I really don't mind. But yeah, instead, you might have this very basic, shallow, surface level conversation of like, oh, you're still working at that place, you haven't moved up yet. And you're like, yep, guess so. And you feel like crap afterwards. But they have no idea what it's taken you to still be here. And they never will have any idea, and that's okay. They don't have to understand it because you're starting to understand it and you're starting to give yourself way, way more grace. So the next time someone comes at you with like, oh, you're still not married yet, or you're still at your parents' house, or you still haven't learned to drive yet, just think to yourself like, babes, I'm lucky to be here. Like, I've only just started to reintegrate onto this planet. Leave me alone, okay? Say that if you want. I give you permission. You don't need my permission, but I give you it anyway. And hey, if people want to be nosy and question you on why you've done something or not done something, if they try to make you uncomfortable, make them uncomfortable right back. Say, well, Sandra, you better top up that wine, love, because between my dad going out to get cigarettes and never coming back and my panic attack that landed me in hospital last year, we have a lot to get through. Your current self can admit that now. Like, they can admit when they're not okay, and it can be empowering to learn how to accept that. But your current self is coming home to themselves. They're realizing, you know, they're not defective. They're just a human person coping with what life has dealt them in the best way they could. And they're learning better ways, but they're also acknowledging that escapism doesn't have to be a bad thing when done responsibly, and when done deliberately, they can use it as a tool to tap into their creativity and explore their imagination and to bring wonderful things into fruition. And I am so proud of them, and I'm so proud of you, Pal 5, for doing this work. And the journey is by no means complete, but you have come so far, and I think that you will continue to go so far with this knowledge you're implementing. I feel like your younger self, still in that shame spiral, is asking, what's wrong with me? And your current self, more than anything, is saying, sweetheart, there was never anything wrong with you. They are saying the world around us was wrong, and because that world wasn't always kind to us, we had no choice but to make a new one. And young you is asking, do we still visit that world? And current you replies, we do, but it's not because we need to anymore, it's because we want to. And younger you asks, are you sure there's nothing wrong with me? I've always been told that there is. And current you brushes a piece of hair out of younger you's face and says, you are perfect and I love you just the way you are. So I know this oracle reading was kind of long and kind of deep, but I'm very intrigued by what the future has in store for you, Pal 5. So you and younger you are going to be like, oh my gosh, future me, we have been waiting for you forever, what's going on, fill us in. And future you is coming here to spill the tea. So they're going to let you guys know what you're getting up to in the future, what things are like for you, who you will become, and who you are currently becoming. Thank you so much for listening so far, Pal 5, and I will see you at the tarot portion. Hi Pal 5 Collective, welcome to the tarot portion of your reading. Without hesitation, let's get started and have a look at the cards we pulled for you. Just going to put your octopus over here. So to start off with, we have the King of Cups reversed, and the clarifier is the Star. Don't worry if the cards are not in frame at first. I'm going to lay the cards and then I'm going to check the camera to see that they're in frame. We have got the Emperor, and the clarifier for that is the Chariot in reverse. We have got the Eight of Swords, and the clarifier is the Ten of Swords. We have got the Page of Swords, and the clarifier is the Queen of Wands. We have got Judgment, and the clarifier is the Seven of Cups. Okay, so with this King of Cups reversed, I'm seeing a few different things, and for some of you it might be a mixture of both of these things that I'm going to describe. But if we talk about the King of Cups reversed energy, we might be describing somebody emotionally immature or emotionally stunted. This is someone who might be perceived as either overly emotional, kind of chaotic, persistently overwhelmed, someone who might experience drastic mood swings, somebody who is out of balance, and somebody who might weaponize their emotions, somebody whose volatility leads them to be manipulative or to be aggressive or violent or controlling at times. But this can also refer to somebody who is emotionally repressed and seemingly uncaring or ruthless and cruel. Now, for some of you, it's very likely that you had experiences with a person with these qualities growing up, or perhaps, in terms of romantic relationships. And for some of you, it could even be sort of both ends of the spectrum. Maybe one of your parents was like out of control emotionally and the other was very repressed or shut down. Or maybe this was just like one person, but they had multiple sides to them. So perhaps if this was a romantic relationship, this was somebody who kind of bottled things up and became very resentful and moody, maybe giving you silent treatment or making snide remarks or refusing to be very open. But then maybe the next minute this individual would snap seemingly over nothing and things would become really volatile really quickly. So it left you feeling like you were stepping on eggshells. Obviously, this is going to manifest in different ways for different people. But the other message that I'm getting is, especially if you grew up around someone like this, but even if you didn't, some of you might identify certain aspects of yourself within this King of Cups reversed energy. Not all of these traits, but some of them, or maybe just one or two of them. And current you might still be in this place of feeling guilty that you have in the past identified with some aspects of this. And particularly if you did grow up in an environment where an example of a healthy relationship was not being modeled for you, it is actually a lot easier than you think for this to happen without it necessarily being a conscious decision. And when I say that, I don't want to remove any kind of accountability from this situation, because accountability is an important aspect of healing. And I don't think it's okay, as like one example, to lash out at someone and hit them and then say like, oh well, I grew up witnessing physical fights, so it's okay because I didn't know any better. Like, no, obviously that's not true. You still need to take appropriate responsibility for any of your actions. But I think in some instances, we really don't know what we don't know. And in your case, I don't necessarily think it's anything extreme, but I think your current self might still be beating yourself up for some past behaviors that they are not proud of. Like maybe you're still punishing yourself for that. So one example could be like, if you grew up around really emotionally volatile people and you were scared of speaking your truth because of how they'd react, maybe one of your parents would, emotionally manipulate you by giving you the silent treatment if you said something they didn't approve of, and that made you feel alone, it made you feel unloved at the time. And maybe as an adult, you and your romantic partner then get into a fight, and maybe they're trying to talk to you, and your immediate reaction is to shut down as a form of creating safety. Your reaction is to withdraw, go quiet, remove yourself. But then maybe your partner is like, hey, why are you giving me the silent treatment? I'm trying to talk to you. And that kind of re-triggers you, because it was never your intention to make your partner feel that way, the way that you felt growing up in those moments with your parent in this example. And then you realize, like, hey, my parent used to do that with me, and it's not okay that I did that. And it makes you feel like this terrible person. And in some instances, it kind of makes you dislike yourself and sort of want to punish yourself because you identify aspects of that parent within you. And so you tell yourself, I don't want to damage anyone the way that I've been damaged. And so I don't deserve love. I don't deserve this relationship. And again, this is not to say like you are not responsible for how you choose to act, because you are. But again, we don't know what we don't know. And I think it's important to take intention into consideration too. Obviously, impact matters a lot. But if you are relying on a certain coping mechanism, and in this example, that mechanism is, shutting down, and you don't realize the impact that's having on somebody else, it's not that you shouldn't try to make it right or accept responsibility, but I think future you is reminding you, like, basically just because you have made mistakes in your life doesn't make you a terrible person. And punishing yourself repeatedly for getting something wrong is just self-imposed victimhood. Like, in that scenario, maybe all your partner wants is like recognition of like, hey, I know it wasn't cool when I gave you the silent treatment. Sometimes when I'm in a conflict with someone, I get emotionally overwhelmed. And because I don't want to be reactive, sometimes that means going away and having time on my own and processing quietly. But I don't want you to think that I am purposely ignoring you. And I want you to know that you are still loved. So that might be something, a way of reassuring your partner that your parent who did this to you never gave to you because they weren't mature enough. And you are mature enough to have those conversations. And so you need to give yourself grace for that. Like, maybe all your partner needs is confirmation that you can acknowledge the issue. And all you need is healthy communication about what you're going to do differently going forward. But if, because you identify some part of yourself that you are deeply ashamed of in that interaction, if you turn that into an opportunity to deny yourself good things, it is possible you are unnecessarily punishing yourself and re-victimizing yourself. And if you react to your partner by breaking down and saying like, I'm a terrible person, I guess you hate me, I don't deserve this relationship, like, not only is that probably not true, but it's not helping the situation, because it probably just makes your partner feel bad that they brought it up. It might make them feel like they can't express their feelings, but then it also makes you feel frustrated that you're getting so emotional about it and that you're struggling to control these deeply rooted feelings of guilt or shame. And this is an absolutely judgment-free zone, Pal 5. Like, all the things I'm talking about now, I think are probably things that I've dealt with. And some of you might not identify with this particular portion of the reading. But I think if there's a part of you that does, even in a minor way, I think what your future self wants to tell you is that you need to stop punishing yourself for who you were in the past and the things that you couldn't be back then. Because it's healthy to acknowledge, like, hey, I recognize that the way I acted in this situation isn't who I want to be and isn't how I would like to act going forward. And I need to apologize and make amends to anyone I harmed in that situation. I would like to explain why I acted the way I did without making it into an excuse. But it's not as healthy to say like, I did this one bad thing 7 years ago and now I don't deserve to live, or I don't deserve to have love or relationships or nice things ever, because what does that achieve? And I think your future self is saying that you do have so much to offer the world, and it doesn't make sense to deny yourself, others, and the world of the opportunity to be loved by you just because you haven't always been absolutely perfect. I think your future self is saying that if you resign yourself to the idea that you are already irredeemable, then who you could be will never exist because you will never give them the chance to. And future you is saying they want that chance and they do deserve it. You do deserve it because that is you. And this might not even necessarily be in relation to you doing something that has hurt another person. This could be you getting frustrated at the ways that you have harmed yourself through your actions or lack of action. And some of you, this could be indulging in certain things that you know aren't good for you because you don't feel like you're fully worthy of the good things. So this can look like, as just a couple of examples, overindulging with food or alcohol or schmecks at the expense of your well-being, and you're telling yourself, I'll always be like this, I don't have enough willpower to stop. Or it could look like you being given the opportunity for a healthy relationship or a really great job and pushing it away or testing it because you think that it's too good to be true. So again, it's like this escapism, this urge to just get out, to just retreat back into old coping mechanisms at the expense of your real life. And it's easy to do because it's where you have found safety in the past and something you've done to just survive. But I think that in that, those lies that you're telling yourself of like, I'll always be like this, or I can't change this, are just beliefs that you're using to punish yourself and deny yourself the opportunity to blossom into this future version of you, because on some level you feel like you're not worthy of it. And so it's this form of self-sabotage and a way of halting your own progression at the expense of future you getting to blossom into who they want to be, because maybe a part of you doesn't fully believe that life is meant to get better for you. But I think future you is telling you that it is. I'm hearing there's hope for you. Yeah, future you has so much hope, and they see your potential even when you cannot see it. For some of you, and I know this is more specific, but I'm hearing the phrase compassion fatigue. And compassion fatigue can often be confused with burnout because there are some overlapping experiences there. But compassion fatigue often refers to people in professions dealing with other people's trauma. And without Googling it, I believe anyone in any occupation can experience that. But it might occur more often in people who work in like healthcare fields, people who deal with medical or emotional crises daily, people who work with vulnerable children, adults, or animals, and things like that. And from what I've read in the past, it does tend to be used in the context of professional life. But I guess this kind of fatigue could also be experienced by someone who just generally in day-to-day life witnesses a lot of trauma, like maybe caring for somebody who is in a lot of pain or constantly having to manage the emotions of somebody else. I don't know whether it would be given a different name in that context, but I was getting that phrase, compassion fatigue, so I wanted to mention it. Please bear in mind I'm not a medical professional, but some of the symptoms of people experiencing compassion fatigue can be mood swings, extreme pessimism, cynicism, or complete detachment. And detachment might result in somebody being seemingly apathetic towards what's going on around them. And like I said, I believe it can happen in many professions, and somebody who identifies as being extra sensitive or hyper empathetic might be more prone to this. But I can see why this would be particularly relevant in certain fields, and I think even the most rationally minded person could fall into this because it's our brain's way of coping with trauma. And I think that's why often medical professionals, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but they can come across as like cold or unempathetic when dealing with patients at times. And don't get me wrong, bedside manner is really important, and any news, whether bad or good, should be dealt with sensitively with patient well-being in mind. But I think sometimes this is evidence of compassion fatigue, because how else might you cope with delivering horrendous news day in, day out? Like, how else does someone cope with the atrocities and unfairness of life? Well, sometimes it's by detaching, and that can look like somebody not caring or not having compassion. And if you've experienced anything like that, whether it be in a job or due to witnessing various traumas throughout your life, your current self might still be like, what is wrong with me? Like, I'm so heartless, I'm so uncaring. But it could be actually that you have an enormous heart and an enormous capacity for love and compassion, but you've had to at some point shut that down for survival. And I think your future self wants you to know in those instances, like, it's okay, you did what you had to do at the time, but you are not these bad things that you're telling yourself you are. And if a part of this healing journey you're on is reconnecting with your younger self and really coming home to yourself, I think your future self is saying your sensitivity has always been a gift, and you are going to find ways of using that really empower you. You're not going to be exhausted by this forever. And they're saying, like, they know your heart and they know that you're such a loving person and you have so much to give, and you'd be denying the world of something truly great if you were to keep resigning yourself to this idea of like, I'm just a bad person. They're saying, no, love, you were never bad. You are an overwhelmed person at times, and that's okay. But if you keep telling yourself you are bad and you keep behaving in ways that reinforce that false belief because you don't believe you're worthy of better, you are not giving yourself the opportunity to truly show to you and to everyone just how amazing of a person you can be. And now they are saying, we really are amazing. They're reiterating it here because I think future you has got to this place where they are not only genuinely hopeful for what else life has in store for them, but they are also loving and appreciating every aspect of what makes them who they are. And maybe those are things that in the past they were shamed for. With us getting the star card, I really feel like there were things that made them different in the past that young you internalized as inherently bad. But future you is saying, like, different doesn't mean bad. And my differences are so insanely beautiful, and I can see that now. You've used some kind of difference that you have to inspire hope. That is something that I'm getting. So it could be that you create something or you go on to share something with the world that only you with your unique perspective could really do. But if you are stuck in this mental prison of telling yourself, you know, I'll never be able to do that because of XYZ, that would actually genuinely be a fucking injustice to the planet, Pal 5, because you have something to say. You have this perspective that, again, only you can give, and it could offer hope to so many people who have been or are in a similar position to you. I feel like your future self is saying, you have already punished yourself enough, like, what's done is done, you can't undo it, but you can do better now if you choose to. The example I'm getting, like, Can you imagine if someone had the cure for some incurable, dangerous disease and they were like, well, I'm not going to do anything about it because I once egged someone's car 10 years ago, so I don't deserve to get the credit for this cure. Like, how ridiculous would that be? And I think in the grand scheme of things, we might be like, yeah, you probably shouldn't have done that, but ultimately, it's not a big deal in comparison to how many lives having this cure will change and how much good you can do in the future. And obviously, it won't be that example for you, but it's something like that where your future self is really yelling at you and saying, stop punishing yourself, stop shaming yourself, stop judging yourself for everything that you are, everything that you have been, and everything that you couldn't yet be. Because there is still so much good that you can do, and it's going to be so much better than any of the perceived bad now that you know better. And I think your future self is saying that sometimes you are hard on yourself because although you know this healing has taken place, you sometimes feel like you should be further along, or maybe you occasionally slip back into old patterns, and that makes you feel like you're right back at the start, like you haven't made any progress. But your future self is saying you have so much life to live and you do not have to force this, you do not have to rush this, you need to take your time. And one day you're going to look around and be so proud of how far you've come. Sometimes you feel like, oh, it's all over, or guess I blew it again, because you lose control in the moment and you do something you regret. But your future self is telling you they are so proud of you for taking control of your life in ways that you've been able to so far. But ultimately, this is not going to be an overnight thing. These things do take time, and it's okay for them to take the time that they need. Again, you are not wrong for not being 100% perfect. Nobody is perfect. I feel like future you is gently telling you to please be more patient with yourself. If you feel like something is delayed or you are not where you need to be, future you is saying you are right where you are supposed to be and there are so many great things to come. I think future you has learned to detach from their emotions in ways that are actually beneficial for them. This doesn't mean denying their feelings and shutting down, but future you has learned to observe their patterns from this lens of objectivity and neutrality. And they reflect on things, and it's from a place of curiosity and using self-discovery as a tool of bettering themselves rather than a stick to beat themselves up with. So if they make a mistake, they're not like, oh my god, I did this, I'm so terrible, I'll never change. They're much more mindful and deliberate with their assessment of it. They might say, well, this happened. Why do we think this happened? And can I use my past experiences to provide context to this experience? What do I need to do differently going forward? Maybe I should journal about it. Future you could be a journaler, they could be an expert when it comes to shadow work too. And I feel like future you has discovered there's so much power in this. Future you is so much more confident knowing that their strengths can strengthen and that their weaknesses aren't weaknesses, they're just opportunities for growth and learning. I feel like your future self actually has a lot more control of their emotions because they don't try to outrun their feelings anymore. And with that, they're not stuck in a state of paralysis. And actually, they realize that it gives them more options because taking ownership over their own life and their feelings and their decisions is incredibly empowering and inspiring. And they're not as caught up in their own head because they've realized that their sense of compassion, their sensitivity, their uniqueness, these things do not have to be things that they are defensive about. These things do not have to be weapons, or they do not have to be weaponized. They don't have to use these things as swords, by which I mean they've discovered these things can be their magic wand. They can use these things to make magic happen, to take positive and inspired action. So this could be something that future you does creatively as an expression of their authentic self. I think future you feels much more content and confident about who they are and their place in the world. And that is a world where they can be themselves, they can be authentic and go after the things they're passionate about. It doesn't only have to exist inside their head. They can make these things a reality if they choose to, and they feel good about that. They feel really good about that. I feel like current you would look at future you and just immediately know, like, hey, you found yourself, and future you would say, yes, and I found so much more. And they can't tell you everything yet, but they do want to let you know that beyond judgment is freedom and that they welcome you with open arms when it comes to you accessing that freedom and leaning into that and really seeing where it leads. So that is what I'm getting for your tarot reading, Pile 5. We are just going to finish up with some closing advice by looking at a couple more oracle cards. Now, these cards are intended to represent the overarching energy of your future self, and it's also just advice to kind of leave you with just like extra confirmation. So let's see what we get for you, Pile 5. Okay, so we have got number 11, time capsule. I have the confidence to be myself. And we have got divine presence. I am a divine presence in this world and I make a positive impact every day. I mean, I'm not going to say too much more because your pile is already so long, Pile 5. But that just says it all. Like, These are things you need to affirm to yourself repeatedly if you need to, until these things are seared into your brain and you start to believe them. Because some of you are so hung up on one bad thing that you did like 10 years ago, to the point where you don't always celebrate the amazing stuff you do every single day now. And I think your future self is saying you need to start celebrating that. Like, yes, you may have hurt someone in your life, but which one of us hasn't? We all do it, whether intentionally or unintentionally. It is an unfortunate consequence of being human and existing with other humans. But also, what about all the times you've made someone's day? What about all the times you make a person laugh, or you make them smile, or you cheer them up, or you give them a compliment, or some heartfelt advice? Like, you are capable of doing so much good in the world, and this is something your future self wants to reinforce. And I think they also want to welcome you to start implementing things into your life that day to day inspire confidence and help you feel closer to that version of you that you want to become. Because one day you are going to turn around and realize that you are that version, but it's because of the small day to day things that you're doing now. It all leads to that. And if someone made you feel bad or wrong for being who you truly are, you do not have to continue to carry that and make it part of your story forever. Put that down. It was never yours anyway. Someone else's story is their own. And if they want to publish that shit without spell checking it, that's up to them, but I don't see it being very successful. Your story, on the other hand, brand new, bestseller, could change lives. So build a new story. You are free now, and you are safe to start being everything that you are meant to be. So that is what I'm getting for your reading, Pal 5. If you enjoyed the reading today, please don't forget to like this video. Please comment and let me know what resonated if you get a chance, or just let me know which pal you picked if you don't feel comfortable. Let me know what resonated. Please sub if you haven't done so already. With all of that said, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.